Hello, hello, hello. We are back once again with another React Tuesday. How are we all doing tonight? Chicken sandwich. What's did you have like a chicken sandwich for lunch or something? And I am in fact live. It's been real cold lately. Oh my god, it's been real cold up here. Brr. Literally last night I was sitting down doing some editing on some of my videos and my toes literally were freezing. I don't have a little space heater either. It's been real rough. Man, it's been getting real cold lately. Well, I guess that's kind of like how it goes, right? Anyway, how are we all doing tonight? I hope everybody's having a fantastic night. Got a few videos here that we're going to be reacting to. That's going to be obviously made into other videos later on down the line. We'll get right into it in a little bit. We're still going to give some people some time to file in here. You know how it is. Oh man. I don't know about anybody else, but I've been having some hard times going to sleep lately. Well, I mean, I know why I had a hard time going to sleep last night. I started watching Severance. It's a really interesting show on Apple TV. Nah, chicken sandwich is just a fun word to say. Also, the thermostat in my house is broke. Oh, so you wouldn't even be able to tell if you're freezing or not. That's big rip, man. Sorry to hear about that. But yeah, I would definitely suggest watching Severance. I usually don't suggest watching any like live action shows because most of them are absolute dog shit. But this one's like pretty good in my opinion. It's a little mind bendy because of the premise, but other than that, I think it's pretty fun to watch. It's got some pretty funny moments in it, mostly because like it kind of blends office comedy with a type of psychological horror. So if that's not your thing, I mean, obviously it's not your thing, but I found it to be interesting and intriguing. All right. Well, seeing as I think we've given enough people enough time to start filing in, I think we're going to go ahead and start off with this Bricky video. I know it's kind of old news. Highguard is kind of like out of cycle now because everybody's now talking about Marathon, but he literally released it after my last React Tuesday. So, well, now I gotta look at it because it's Bricky. We all love Bricky around here. So let's get right into it, and then we can go ahead and we might not do the Riot one until the end of stream, mostly because I don't think a lot of people in the community play Riot games. I do, but or at least I used to. So I really do like to kind of stay up to date with what's happening with Riot, but they're slowly killing their company just like every other AAA games industry. Sorry for the gibberish. That's okay. I know that obviously not a lot of people like react time, but I like reacting to things, so and it's my stream. So you're strapping in for the ride if you want. Alrighty, let's get to this. Let's get to this Bricky video. Oh, why is it on mute? Alright, what do we got for us, Bricky? Let's tell us about Highguard here. Also, if the volume is too low, be sure to let me know. Oh, YouTube.
I'm
There we
sorry,
go.
but I need to talk about Highguard.
Yay! You and the entire internet. This might be a little
I was
loud.
deep in the throes of the Mass Effect video, and despite my insistence that I continue
Oh, he's
working
doing a
on that
Mass
one,
Effect
I
video?
just
That's awesome.
couldn't shake the thought of Highguard. Yes, Highguard, the brand new
Oh,
PvP
Jesus.
shooter based defense competitive team game Highguard. The reason I felt like it was so important to talk about this game is because I was having such a hard time finding anyone who was talking about the actual specifics of the game's launch, as well as the discussions around it by Wildlight Studios,
Okay.
the team who made Highguard. Then I noticed immediately, only a few weeks after its launch, a large amount of the team at Wildlight was laid off, and I said, that's it. I'm making a big
Well, I mean, obviously a lot of them got laid off because their game flopped hard, like really hard. No, like everybody who was paying attention to it could have expected it. But I guess it'll be interesting because he sounds like he's trying to come at it from more of a development angle. So let's see how this
video about
goes for it.
goddamn High Guard. Because while I think that there have been some people who have given the game an honest shot, there have been some folks who have genuinely went into the game without bias and saw how it plays. I don't
Yeah.
think many of them have done
I think that's true, especially because like Doki Bird went in and played it, and you can tell that Doki was trying to she was trying to give it an honest shot and not be too harsh on it. But I think that it wasn't really fun, and she couldn't really say that she disliked it in stronger terms. So she was I think she was a bit of an awkward situation, but a lot of people tried to give it a shot, and it didn't end well for them.
with the forethought of what the game was supposed
I mean, like I said, there's that famous, not famous, but there's that clip out there. I think it was Shroud. Shroud was playing it, and his teammate, their pickup teammate, literally said in the middle of the match, "Bruh, this game's boring," and just quit.
to be, or what the original plan was.
Need to raise the
before it
volume a
was
little
then
bit. I've been
ceremoniously
told.
or unceremoniously thrust at the end of the Game Awards. High Guard is a really weird situation. One where on paper, it seems like every decision made had some merit or skill.
I disagree. I very much disagree that on paper that this game sounded good. And the reason why I disagree is because the market's already saturated with these types of games. And I don't think anybody who'd be reading that design doc, if they had any amount of plugged into the gaming community, would be like, yeah, we totally want this. This was a game that was made by marketing. This wasn't a game made by developers.
Behind it, but all ended up to form something that was either out of time or out of place. One of the better examples of maybe a good decision at a high level undermined by a bad decision or a lot of uncertain execution. I will preface this very much so by saying this video is going to be a bit against the grain. Not everything I say here
YouTube has been such a jerk hiding my notifications and junk. The Discord has saved me time because if not, I would never. Oh, no worries.
A company that I've been working with for about 7
Gamersupps
years now. I'm wearing their shirt and
never
I'm
tried Gamersupps.
repping all of their stuff.
I've heard that a lot of people like it.
Use code
I think they use.
I totally forgot to mention this. There's actually 20%
They use
off
a
for the next, like,
specific
5 days.
type of
Actually,
sweetener
like,
that doesn't
20%
really
off.
sit well with
It's
my
all
stomach, which is
double the
unfortunate
discount. Use code
as far
Bricky
as
for
I've
that.
been able
Okay,
to
now
look
for the
into it.
actual part of the ad. It is the company I've been sponsored with for almost 7 years, and the
But I'd
reason for
definitely
that
give
is
it a
because they
try.
make stuff that I use
I'm just
on
glad that
the
you're also
daily,
using the
and
Discord.
they have
That's been
also
like a
treated me
huge.
with an immense amount
That's
of
been like
care
a
and
huge thing that I've been trying to
respect,
push a
more
little bit
than
more.
any other
So
company
I'm
I've
glad that
sponsored
people
by
have been
whatsoever.
engaging with
They
it. It's actually
continue
been
to
really,
iterate on all of their products.
really
Not only do
nice.
they have the fantastic energy and caffeine-free Gamersupps things, including dietary supplements and all that kind of stuff.
And
but
YouTube's always a jerk.
particularly, they have also given me my own flavor, Sweet Six Pack, which is a fantastic cherry pineapple combo. Not to mention, they
That
have
does
also
sound good.
expanded, including things like AFK, which is melatonin and various things to help with sleep aid. They've also done something
If
called
I get big
Gamer
enough and
Aid,
ever
which is
get a
actually
Gamersupps
creatine
flavor,
and more
it will
potassium
be.
hydration-based thing.
I've
that
got a
is
few
nice little
names
light
bouncing
thing I
around
do
in the
try to
back of my
after
head.
workouts because it's the other half of my creatine. That is what is in this right here.
But if I
And
get it,
they've also
you'll
moved
find out.
forward
If
with
I
things
don't,
like merchandise, really,
oh well.
really good merchandise. A little jealous sometimes, I'm not gonna lie. And then of course all of their different shaker cups and jugs. They constantly are coming out with new things, new lines, and inviting.
You know what? I'm gonna grab another
creators to
Pepsi
join
while
them.
we're waiting.
Some of my favorite flavors include Russian Badgers, Guacamole Gamer Fart 9000, Papa Meat's raw meat flavor. It's actually fantastic.
Oh wow!
As well as
Meat
few
Canyon
of
got a
my
flavor.
various VTuber Friends flavors as well. It's all
We
great
like
stuff.
Meat Canyon.
And I would definitely check it out at gamersubs.com.
He's pretty cool.
Or use code Bricky for 10% off your order. Thank you for sponsoring the video. Now,
Yeah, I love the
back
Discord.
to
Everyone
High
has been
Guard.
so nice
Now,
and fun to
firstly,
talk to. I'm glad
sure
that
you
you've
wanna
been
know what
enjoying
High Guard
it.
is if you've never ended up
I'm glad that we've been able to
Many of you
curate
have
a
heard the
community
game, but
that's
it's been
good too.
somewhat confused by what it actually is. What a game of High Guard looks like is a combination of Apex Legends, CS:GO, and honestly a lot more paladins than you'd expect. You start out by picking a warden, which is
Okay.
one of the many hero type characters in the game. You then choose a style of base, and then you begin a gearing up phase, which involves reinforcing your base and then
Right.
venturing out to get as much gear as you can from the map. Now, if you're familiar with Apex, then you will be very familiar with the gear system of the game. You have armor, ammunition, weapons, and utilities, and they
Right, but do people want to play that?
all run around with a similar gray, blue, purple, orange type thing. They have their own effects, they have their own upgrades, etc. This is as you would expect. Then after you're geared up, you will fight over something called the Shield Breaker, a huge sword that is used to break into your opponent's base. Once broken into, you begin the raid, and a bunch of really skilled Korean guys start beating the shit out of you. Hope it's
Oh,
Korean
no.
and not Japanese. We'll find out.
So the way that I've at least seen the game play is you do have those moments. The problem is those moments are punctuated by just nothing. There's like, at least at the beginning of the game, there's like 40% of your time is spent looking for something. The other like 30% of your time is spent traversing and mining, and then 10% of your time is spent with the actual gunplay and fighting each other. At least that's what I've seen.
This is where the game becomes CSGO. The attacking players receive limited lives and attempt to plant a bomb on one of 3 objectives. The 2
Okay.
side objectives,
Which sounds
need
good
to
on
both be
paper.
destroyed to win,
Quote.
or the middle one can be destroyed by itself to win, but it takes much longer and it's easier to defend. Now, if the team runs out of lives, you return back to the original starting world and you do it over again, just this time with better loot options. So when I say the game is a mix of a lot of things at once, that is absolutely the case. It has a hero shooter aspect with its characters.
Okay.
It has CSGO style bomb planting and defusing as an end game. And then the actual gunplay, UI, armor is very much Apex Legends. Now,
Yep.
if you're watching this video,
100%.
you are. There might be 2 things you're here for. Either a genuine review of Highguard.
The worst
or
part is the
discussion of
mounted combat
developments and
seemed
things surrounding
interesting.
Highguard, and whether or not Jeff
The mounted combat did seem interesting. The problem is like, did they need to put it in the game? Like, did they need to have the entire rigmarole at the beginning of mining and setting, like basically like the laning phase, so to speak, of the game? But like, did you really need to do that? Why didn't you just make it a shooter?
Keighley is going in the company Death Note held in the back room of Wildlight Entertainment. I plan to provide you with all of that, but it's going to be a bit intertwined between itself, so that will require me to work really hard on my transitions. So Wildlight has been extremely
That was a
tight-lipped
lot of
about this
transitions
game,
real
so finding
fast.
specific details is relatively difficult. Now, I have been a Titanfall fan for a long while. I played a lot of Apex in the beginning, so while I do have some
Titanfall fan mentioned. I'm so sorry for all my Titanfall fans out there that they just decided to kill that game on repeat.
contacts at Wildlight or people who know people at Wildlight. I do obviously want to keep most of that as just sort of like Bricky hearsay.
Yeah, man,
and
TTK
kinda
in this
try to
game
go
seems
with
like
most of
really,
what's been said
really long.
actually publicly online. What can be found is that the studio was developed in 2021 officially, and their company was made fully public on what they were working on in 2023 based on a post from Chad Grenier on their Twitter account. Now Chad
Okay.
was the game director on Apex and also the game
Hello,
director
Georgie.
on Highguard. Now they're a team of about 100.
I don't think the mounted combat didn't need to be included. It needed to be better integrated to make it actually good. That's why I'm saying that, like, to just to skip ahead to the inevitable cuts of the game, it should have just been discluded. Like, if it didn't fit the game and it was having a hard time fitting in, it would just be easier and more resource, I would say, resource conservative to just say we're just gonna get rid of it. I think it would have just been better for the overall like game, like feel of the game, because then you can start cutting out all the traversal aspects, and then you can just get to what makes the game like function on a base level. I don't know if I said hello. I think I did say hello to Georgie, but I'll say it again because I don't remember what happened 5 seconds ago because I'm a goldfish. Hello.
People, and according to Dusty Welch, who was their founder CEO, about 60 of the 100 were from the Titanfall or Apex team and had left Respawn prior. Now, the team being so secretive on the project was 100% on purpose. They wanted to be tight-lipped about everything and treat it much like they
To be fair, most teams want to do that.
treated Apex. The
Which,
entire
understandable.
foundation of Highguard was personified by the idea of low and slow. It was a test of a new IP, and much like with Apex, they wanted it to start getting its footing and feedback from players over time to allow it to form into what they wanted it to be. Now, you may or may not remember this, but Apex Legends was a complete shadow drop. EA and Respawn just started a stream with a bunch of static map images of the game, and then like an hour in, played a trailer, announced the title, and a whole bunch of major FPS streamers and
Right. So that's what I was going to say is like the way they slow rolled or they just kind of surprised everybody with Apex Legends. It worked for Apex Legends. I don't know if you want to do that with every game because it ceases to become surprising and interesting the more people just shadow drop things. At least that's kind of what I've been seeing. Not that people are like completely fatigued with them, but you could start seeing people maybe like going, "Oh, another shadow dropped game. Okay."
folks began a sponsored stream.
There are
Now,
a
this
lot of
worked
people who like to get excited
wonders
for something
the game.
coming out.
Obviously, not being Titanfall 3 was disappointing to many, myself included, but we weren't quite in Battle Royale fatigue yet, and it was doing something rather new and
Everyone watching this should like stream right now because my streamer likes to get big and strong. Thank you. Thanks for plugging me, Riv.
completely different, especially having modern.
What would you prefer? Would you prefer I call you Riv, or would you prefer I call you what you were named in the Discord?
Fluid shooting controls, which its competition did not have. You can see Highguard taking a super similar approach to everything, with the exception of the Game Awards announcement. They were completely radio silent all the way up to the game's launch.
Right, and the Game Awards announcement was not the venue to announce this game. It is not last trailer material. And I think a lot of people saw that, especially the art style, and they're like, "Oh, I don't know. It looks kind of not good." I just don't think that it should have had this much hype behind it, because if it didn't, it probably would have released to a little bit more positive of a reception because people wouldn't have felt like it was being forced in their face.
Then a ton of FPS streamers were sponsored by it, and it was available to play. Now, in doing research for this video, thank you, Possum, one of the most fascinating things I saw was discussion on the development of the game, because the design philosophy and initial bits for this game really makes sense on paper. To begin, Wildlight's goal...
Again, I don't think that on paper it really does make sense. And the reason I don't think it really makes sense on paper is because a lot of it is in contrast, or at least the way that I would think that it would have been put on paper is in contrast to how games in the industry generally play. Because it's probably saying something like, we want to have like a resource gathering component to it, and then go into like a I don't know, like a 12 life 3v3. It's like, okay, sure, maybe on paper that could sound a little interesting, but these two design philosophies would be, at least I would think, in contrast to one another. Not saying that some design philosophies on paper in contrast are bad in every circumstance. It just, in this circumstance, I would think that a high octane, high moment to moment gameplay of a shooter would not fit well also with resource gathering. I don't know. That's just my opinion. Either name is fine. Okay. Then yes, thank you for the plug.
Are shooter fans. They've worked on shooters. They love shooters. It was always going to be a competitive shooter. That was the
right.
goal.
So then why don't you just make it a shooter?
And they do not believe in the idea of fatigue within the confines of a multiplayer shooter. They believe that the end product is a game that is truly unique in style, and metrics show that the genre is still very viable. Now,
sure,
I do disagree a little bit with the genre viability, but I can disagree with the idea that their end product is truly unique in...
I can even agree that their metrics probably show that the that the market isn't saturated. However, I think what they didn't control for is brand loyalty, and I don't think that they controlled for the fact that most people find a shooter that they like and play only that shooter. They don't generally tend to hop from shooter to shooter to shooter.
Style. It
might have been an oversight on their metrics department.
There is nothing else that plays like this game. Forming Wildlight gave them freedom that wasn't offered with Respawn. Now, at Respawn,
Sure.
the idea of doing a non-Apex game was impossible, and they were locked into its success. But a new studio meant they could do things from scratch, especially with a new IP. They wanted to do something different than Apex, and this was the way to go about it. Development for this game
Yeah, I
was
mean,
geared
it
to the
did
fact
turn
that they
very
wouldn't
different.
know the audience until after the release. So with the experience of the Apex release timeline,
So let me hang on. I have to digest that. They wouldn't know the audience until after it released. I don't think that that is a good philosophy to be building a game for. Because I don't think that you should build something without a target audience in mind. Because I think if you build something without a target audience in mind, then you try to get too many people and gain no one. At least that's what I would think the logical consequence of that would be. I also think that it allows you to have a lack of identity, which people generally don't gel with. I don't know. I think that you probably should have had a target audience that you tried to pursue rather than whatever it is
mind,
that you
they
just
built
did.
HighGuard so that it has a year's worth of content ready to go upon release. That way, the
Okay.
focus can be on hotfixes and patches while the content is explored in real time so they can assess feedback as the game and its subsequent updates came out. Now, originally, the game was going to include a much higher configuration with multiplayer combat. At one point, the matches included 8-player teams, and then that was whittled down to
8-player teams probably would have been much better for the health of the game.
6v6, 5v5, 4v4, and finally 3v3. The size of the maps remained mostly the same throughout, even with the removal
Yeah.
of as many players.
You remove 10 players from the map and don't change the size of the map. That is stupid. Because you've got a map that's now empty when there should have been, was it 16 players running around on it? Now you've whittled it down to 6 players.
Because the
No,
idea was
I
that
think you
the
probably
players
should
could
have
then gear up without fear of
downsized the
immediate
map.
pressure. Mounts were not originally part of the game, but then they were added for convenience sake.
Okay, so there we go. Mounts were not part of the game, but they were added for convenience sake, which then became a huge selling point of the game as not only we've been discussing here, but was very heavily showcased within the trailer. Okay. So instead of just changing the map, which probably would have been better in the long run, they just said, "Oh, we're going to tape over it by adding a mount." Why?
Another early design idea for the game was the base building aspect to it, but this was also scrapped. And other early things.
Oh, there was going to be
scrapped too, but
base
they might
building
be added
too?
to future episodes of the game. Now,
Oh my god, this sounds like feature creep the game.
the team embraced the concept of something more fantasy-like for the game's aesthetic because it offered a more unique theme. To quote, "We like guns that feel and sound real and meaty and shoot real bullets." So we started there. And then we didn't want
And yet they had a revolver in the game that had 12 bullets in it with a 6-bullet cylinder. Wow!
to make sci-fi for our whole lives. The tech in
Or
the world
something
they
like that.
described as World War I++. They didn't want any magic wands or magic powers that came from the hands of the player, as this would take away from the
World War One? What are you even talking about? Obviously, this is the devs talking. He's quoting them, or at least like paraphrasing what they said. This looks nothing like World War One.
guns. They wanted it to be meaty shooting with some occasional sparkle powers in there for
This looks
use
post
in
World
the map.
post
The
World
goal
War
was
Two
to
at
make
like
a more
like
unique
that's an AK-47 right here. Like this is an AK-47. This would not have happened in a World War One Divergent timeline. I don't think. Because like this was a unique adaptation of the Sterngewehr from World War II at the end of World War II. That was a Soviet. It was a Soviet invention, or rather a Soviet iteration upon it. So this wouldn't exist if it were just a World War One divergence, or at least there would be something completely different.
shooting experience with a lot of attention to the game modes and the map exploration. The game
Like this is very clearly a fucking
ended
AK-47.
up becoming a hero shooter anyways. Now, lead designer Carlos Pineda acknowledges that people don't really like heroes, but they, quote, make the game better, and that's really the important part.
People don't really like heroes, but they make the game better. Okay. we're gonna need to unpack that. You think the game is being made better by having heroes, but people don't really like it. So does that make the game better for the audience who's going to buy your game? The answer to that is no. So then really the logical consequence of following that logic train is heroes do not make the game better. Because you want people to buy the game. Like, come on.
Unquote. So I really want to like break this down because I
Yes,
think
please.
it's super important. I don't think any part of the lineup of decisions that were made in the production of Highguard was in a vacuum wrong. Wildlight is made up of shooter veterans who
Okay.
have spent most of their careers working on shooter games.
So I think that, again, you can use a lot of logic to kind of try to show that some of the decisions they made, even in a vacuum, are wrong. So I do disagree, at least with that assessment. However, we'll see where this goes. I'm hoping that, maybe my mind can be changed, but I think that when you really sit down and think about it, like holistically, they probably could have done better in a vacuum. Delusional game devs, I don't think that they were 100% delusional, and allow me to give me the reasons why. I don't think that if they are basing their decisions solely off of numbers, they are delusional. Because I think the numbers, at least the numbers that they had, were telling them these details. I think the numbers were decontextualized, though, and I don't think that these people actually are plugged into the larger gaming community. Heroes are fine when you can actually build a reason to like those heroes. Like Overwatch originally started neglecting their lore and no one liked it, coupled with gameplay people like. Again, I'm taking on good faith that what he said, that people don't really like heroes, because personally, I don't care. Like, to me, I if I create my own character, if I have my own hero, it doesn't really matter to me either way. But in a vacuum, so here we're going to use that phrase again, in a vacuum, if you in your same statement say people don't really like heroes, but they make the game better, you can logically parse out that heroes don't in fact make the game better with those two statements. And it doesn't even matter if it's true or not. They're just applying logic improperly, at least how I would think it would work.
This is something that I am very aware of. They believe in a competitive shooter and wanted to make one, and that part of Highguard is admittedly very, very good. The
Sure.
actual shooting...
And we'll be completely fair here. We will be 100% completely fair. Everybody who played Highguard said this game would be better with a ranked mode or with a more competitive mode. At least that's what I've heard from pretty much everybody who played the game. So I think that's a fair assessment. If there was more condensed gameplay of just the shooting and the competition, I think they'd probably have a little bit more there.
The game feels fantastic. The reload animations for all the weapons look great. The movement and gunplay moment to moment is easily Highguard.
Except for the, was it 12 bullet, 6 bullet cylinder revolver? I'm always going to make fun of them for that.
Despite all of the shade we might throw at a game like Apex for monetization and balance decisions and the like, the gunplay of Apex, and especially of Titanfall, is excellent. And it is very clear that Wildlight is great at doing exactly this kind of content.
Sure, but you can't run an entire game based solely on the gunplay.
A very specific era of gaming, and that was the competitive shooters era of the mid-2000s and beyond. These are developers that grew up on games like Counter-Strike and other intense shooters, and therefore there is a paramount focus on one thing, and that is the clarity of gameplay and visuals. And if not that, extreme balancing. Clarity of gameplay is something you see a lot in a game like Valorant, for example. If there is a backdrop or an environment that will cause an enemy to not be perfectly visible and outlined against it, they will remove or change that backdrop. If a move provides just a little too much visual...
I don't have enough edification on competitive shooter games to know if this is or is not a good thing. So I don't really have a comment on it except for the fact that I think Highguard did in some way nail that, because you can definitely very clearly see in pretty much all of the clips with any background where there is and is not a hero.
Clutter, it will be toned down. Gameplay is king at all times, and because of that, great lengths are taken to make sure that clarity is maintained.
Sure, but
and
that's
most importantly, fair.
That is a part of the gameplay. You are correct.
Fair is the key word here. Now, I'm not saying the word fun. Fun is assumed automatically. It's assumed that the game is always fun, but a lot of focus appears to be on the game being fair. As I mentioned before, the gameplay is actually...
That's a good point, because fair doesn't always mean fun too.
Pretty good in Highguard, but you know what isn't?
Like we've been seeing a lot of problems with that, with like numbers based balancing that a lot of devs have been doing. A lot of people have been memeing on it. Like a lot of developers look at the numbers and they balance based solely on the internal metrics, when really that's not the first thing that you should be looking at. You should be looking at how qualitatively or substantively the game plays.
Team size and the map size. One of the biggest issues is that 3v3 is straight up not the right count for this game.
Absolutely.
In this environment. When you get to the base defense, it gets a bit closer, but not as close as it should be. So
you want to know why it does at the base defense? And it's surprise amongst surprise, because you are in a condensed small area forced to fight each other like a shooter should be made. Wow. That's not, I can't believe it. We've cracked the code.
What happens is that you end up with these huge maps where absolutely nothing happens because it's only 3 players on each team. So it's
like playing Blood Gulch in a 1v1.
Insanely dull until you find someone, and that normally only happens when it's time to fight over the shield breaker. But why 3 players? Probably because it was the most fair. Like I said before, the game...
I'm also going to bet you that there might have been a technical limitation to having 3 players too on launch. Like, yeah, they updated it to 5v5, but I wouldn't put it past them to have released a game where they weren't able to technically be able to have that many players on a map. Because that's just how things release nowadays. I mean, there's also some part of game philosophy where some parts are supposed to be unfair. If everyone is a little unfair in different ways, it makes it dynamic and unique. Leaning on strictly fairness is boring. So I think that you are correct in more of a mechanics aspect, where the unfairness can come in with what characters can do, but the underlying core gameplay of the guns themselves and like the actual, like, I would say the defining moments of the game should be fair to everybody. So we're talking like input, being able to have visual clarity, being able to have like the ability to play the game easily accessed by everybody in a way. It's like everything has a baseline of fairness, and then the extra bonuses that make people unfair or make characters unfair come in later on after the clarity and fairness gameplay is already built upon. So the parts of the game that are balanced so that everybody is playing on the even field, where your substantive qualities of what character you're playing can have unfair things in certain situations, which makes the game dynamic. So I think we're talking about more of a structural part in this rather than rather than a character design aspect.
Originally had 8 players and was whittled down with mounts.
Should have been 8 players.
They wanted players to be
and like that's what we're talking about here, where he's saying that 3 players was more fair, where 8 players could have like, you know, an excised impact on it, where it's easy to coordinate 3 players, especially if you're in a like a pickup game, but it's harder to coordinate 8 players in a pickup game if you're against an 8 stack. So 3v3, 3 players who all know each other, who are playing in, you know, Discord with each other, is going to be a little bit less or a little bit unbalanced against the pickup 3v3, but it's not something that's insurmountable because one person can carry a 3v3, right? It's fair, it's balanced. 8 players though, one person has a really hard time carrying an 8-player lobby, so a 16-player lobby. And if you've got 8 players or at least like 5 players on the same team communicating with one another, that definitely gets a lot more unfair than a 3v3. And that's like a core underlying structural element of the game that we're dissecting here. And yeah, I mean, I think that is correct. I think, however, it's not fun. Like that's one of those moments where it's like, no, you designed it because they designed it to be unfun because it was designed for more players.
Loot up without getting pounced on by a squad, which, to make everyone feel like they have a fair shot, makes sense from a balance perspective, but the result is that it becomes slower and duller. I also noticed that there's the resource mechanic in the game to mine crystals to buy stuff from the shop. Now, I imagine a similar situation was there.
Yeah, I agree with the field and the mechanics needing to be fair. I mean, I agree with it too insofar, right? I agree with it needing to be fair, but I don't agree with the fact that in order to make it fair, they just changed and modulated the amount of players on, obviously an 8-player map to 3. It's like, oh, okay.
Where if you were, say, unfairly pounced on or you were able to gear up, you could at least back up, farm a little bit to buy the stuff from the shop you need while everyone else is out there and fighting. Now, I do agree, if this game was back at 8 players, there's a chance that some members of the team get beaten early and struggle to recover, leading to a bad experience. 3v3 is undoubtedly more fair in that scenario, but it is also far less fun. They also talked about base building in the game too, and that is an aspect of Highguard that is also rather underbaked. They said they had plans for stuff that was more involved and scrapped it, and I think you can see it on display here. Wardens have—
well, they should have scrapped a whole lot more than just the base building.
Things that interact with the base, and I won't deny that actually blowing open a wall to attack people is kind of fun. But at the start of the game, all you do is reinforce walls, and even that doesn't quite make a difference at all. Base building would, I think, create a really neat dynamic to the game, adding things like traps, turrets, mountable things, and more.
So I kind of agree and disagree with that. I agree that probably it would have made the game more interesting in like the base phase, but I don't know if it's necessary because the focus of the game is more on the shooter aspect of it, right? I don't know if that would make the game better or more tedious. I think it would make it more tedious, right? Because then you've got to focus more on like what's happening on the base, then you have to balance traps if they put traps in. I think you should just keep it to be a shooter because that seems what people want. It sounds like they wanted everything from the popular competitive game while still keeping it CSGO, which is weird. Yeah, like I said, I think this is probably feature creep the game, or scope creep even.
And I can see a real way where that could have worked like that, but of course, doing stuff like that with 3 players would be hellish, because having one guy—
yeah, you'd have to have one guy
be able to take down a whole team would make for a huge field.
We'd also have like
same
one guy focusing on the base.
So for the sake of fairness, I imagine it was removed. The part where they pivot to heroes is actually really fascinating to me, because they flat out state that they understand that heroes are not a very popular thing nowadays.
Right.
But they did it anyway because it made more sense for the game. I assume, much like before, that it was for the sake of balance. If people chose heroes—
No. That's not what they said. They said it made the game better.
that means that people wouldn't double up on abilities or ultimates that could create unfair things for the enemy. If heroes are in your—
Sure, but I don't think I don't know, I haven't played the game. Do the abilities add anything meaningful to the game is my first question.
game, and that means if one of them is busted, you can't spam them, which mitigates the effects of that mismatched balancing. This is really old school, but in Titanfall 1, you could customize your Titan a lot more. You can choose the gun and the special gear for it and which kind of chassis. But because of that, it kind of made really only like 1 or 2 Titans the best Titans in the game, and it became kind of ridiculous. Actually,
sure, yeah, I can see that. It became meta
in Titanfall 2, but in the second game, they turned Titans almost like heroes in a way, with static kits, because in that way you couldn't take all the OP stuff and mix it together. Titanfall 2 still has the Monarch and Stim car, but you know, they did their best. But to that point, every single choice in Highgarm feels like it was a choice made in reaction to an issue with another section of the game. People need time.
So they were trying to preempt problems before they happened, I think.
looting and have a chance, so reduce the player count. Now there's too few players, so we need mounts. The shield breaker with a mount is too fast, so we gotta do teleports to catch up with them. Abilities were too powerful, so lock them behind heroes. I don't think this is exactly how it went down. Obviously, I'm not omnipotent, but it does appear
No,
that
it's
is
logical,
what you
though.
ended up with. The thing that really messes me up is that I kind of don't really mind Highguard. It isn't my cup of tea for the most part, but playing it,
I heard that a
don't
lot of people
hate
had,
it.
like,
oftentimes,
the reaction
I
was
saw
it was an
myself
unbridled
generally
meh.
enjoyed because turns out a game that lets you shoot gun really good, allows you to forgive a lot of sins. Isn't that right, Bungie? My biggest issue was by far the 3v3
Oof.
nature of the game, as that was the most common complaint by so many others. So I think within a week, the devs added a 5v5 mode immediately after launch.
They did.
And that goes in line with their initial statements about letting the community feedback help shape the game. 5v5, mind you, is genuinely a cut above 3v3 in almost every way. It is actually quite
Yeah, because it allows the maps to be filled out with players like they were trying to do at the beginning.
enjoyable at times. Not to mention, there is a lot of aspects of the game that are just really damn cool. The voice acting is top notch across the board. The starting screens for the game are also actually very neat looking. And I can't help but appreciate the fact that attacking an enemy base involves stabbing a giant sword into a shield to summon a portal for a huge cat battering ram tower. Like, I don't care.
I mean,
about
I
your thoughts on
guess.
the game, that animation is sick as hell. All of this to say, again,
I don't know.
I don't dislike Highguard.
I'm
It's
ambivalent towards it.
very mid, but its gameplay is good enough and its animation slick enough that I can forgive some of its relatively underbaked aspects, at least for a little bit. It's still not a fantastic game, but it's still at least a bit mixed. But unfortunately, a little bit
I think that's the problem, though. If it's not a fantastic game and it's a little bit mixed, that's almost worse than it just being a bad game.
isn't really something that flies in a gas game like this. Now, of course, it all started at the Game Awards. The last game shown of the night is normally a really big one. It's a big deal.
Yep.
It's right before Game of the Year. It sort of crescendos it up, and it's
This really put the
overall
nail in the
just a bit of a
coffin for this game.
For reference, the final games shown before Game of the Year in 2020 and onwards were Mass Effect 5, absolutely hilarious. 2021 was Arc Raiders and some Keanu Matrix thing. 2022 was Final Fantasy 16. 2023 was Monster Hunter Wilds, and 2024
Monster Hunter
was
Wilds
that
went
new
crazy.
Naughty Dog game Intergalactic.
I cannot wait for another Druckmann to hit the games industry. This game is going to flop so bad. I said, I'm not hinging on the catharsis of this game flopping, but there is going to be a lot of content surrounding it. And I'm excited for that because it's going to be something a lot of people are going to talk about.
You know, all games that either have a cultural significance or an impact due to their studios or their long-running franchises or something along those lines. The thing that constantly gets at me is that Highguard being the final game in the Game of the Year show just went against everything the game set out to do. Every interview, every developer commentary, all the things I mentioned talk so heavily on this game being a slow, smooth shadow drop to then ramp up and find its footing, low
Right.
and slow.
They tried to
like I
do
said
that,
before.
but it just
a
didn't-
bombastic final trailer at the VGAs seems to have never been
Just didn't
planned.
work.
I've tried hard to ask around about why this decision was made, and I cannot seem to find an answer. The only thing I've seen
It's 'cause
is that
Jeff Keighley wanted
likes
it.
the game and wanted to show it off, but that doesn't seem like it's enough of the full story. There is a little bit of a possibility that because Wildlight was funded
Tencent secretly funded struggling shooter Highguard. I heard about that. And I don't know. I don't like that Tencent is putting their tentacles into everything.
by Tencent, as Tencent funds like everyone nowadays, and Jeff does have a lot of Tencent related things in his Game Awards. There may have been a
Well,
mutual
the Game Awards are
interest
also
there, but
funded
that
by
is getting a
Tencent,
little
or at
bit
least in part by
conspiratorial.
Tencent.
I don't know if it's enough for me to really kind of call that the reason. Regardless, the game was shown and the hate was instant. The game was laughed at and shit on from every corner of the internet the
Yep.
moment the words ex-Titanfall devs were uttered and then immediately transitioned to horseback. Now, call me crazy, but I am not someone who generally thinks something should be written off immediately without even playing the game, especially in the case of multiplayer.
So I will call you crazy. I think there are some things that you can just tell are going to be bad, based solely on the fact of all the surrounding things around it. I think that you can write off certain things. It might not be good or nice to say that, but I think you can. So, sorry, I've been absent for chat for a while. I've been busy around my house. That's no worries. I don't. If you chat, you chat. If you don't, you don't. I just hope that you're enjoying the show. People are free to chat or not chat. If they just want to be a lurker, I mean, I've been a chronic lurker my entire life, so I completely understand it. So, chat at your own pace.
While not particularly inspiring, doesn't look like an asset flip or some kind of scam where it's very easy to judge a book by its cover. For such a high-profile announcement, I do think you should at least try the title before passing judgment. I know.
I think that you can get enough sense of a game if you watch somebody who you trust to watch, who play games, and you can kind of be like, okay, yeah, I can see why this game's bad. However, I do think that if you're intellectually honest, you do want to be trying those games, but you can generally get the feel. Like, I think we're going to be talking about, what's it called? Marathon later today. And a lot of people have been judging that one already. And I think that there's been a lot of reasons for people to judge that, especially with the way that Bungie has been conducting themselves. Hello, I'm here now. What are we watching? And Slash has watched. I see the Brickmaster. Today we are started to watch Bricky's take on Highguard, and we're going to be watching some more stuff later on down the line about, like I said, Marathon. I like talking a lot, if you couldn't tell. I mean, I like talking a lot too.
Super hot take.
That's why I'm behind the mic.
I wasn't blown away, but I tried to at least keep a bit of a neutral stance.
Sure.
I don't know. We'll see. It's free to play gas game. We'll see. However, after the VGAs and the immediate bombarding on social media and etc., Wildlight went dark, as was their plan all along, and that only
they should have stuck to it.
On the title. You think,
like I said, I definitely think that if they had stuck to that plan and not allowed themselves to be announced at the Game Awards, this game would have been released to a general public of maybe maybe 10,000 concurrent players. People wouldn't be, crapping on it constantly and being negative about it. And it would have just been a regular old meh type of game that some people liked and most people don't.
With the showcase, they'd have a bunch of stuff.
And that'd have been it.
That'd have been that. We know why that wasn't the case, but it still didn't help with sentiment whatsoever. When the game did finally launch, it was bombarded with negative reviews within the first 10 minutes of its launch, throwing it to overwhelmingly negative on Steam. At launch, it had the usual streamers playing it, as was expected.
There is the
Apex
Shroud, or is that Shroud?
Everyone
pretty sure that's Shroud, right?
The Steam
I don't know FPS streamers.
Reviews did move up and now sit at a mixed rating, which I think is about where I would personally put it at the time of recording this video.
Right, but like I said earlier, I think the problem is, and I think this is a big problem, if you have a game that is of mixed reception, that is almost worse than, like, a mid game, it's almost worse than having an overwhelmingly negative game. Because overwhelmingly, or I would say like bad games, is probably a better way of terming it. I would say that bad games have their audience too. A lot of people enjoy playing bad games because they're having fun with how bad it is. This game is neither good nor bad, so nobody's going to have fun with it because nobody wants to play something that's just mid. They could be playing something better and they could be playing something worse.
Like I said in the beginning, I wasn't going to make a video on Highguard. I saw it, I played it, I left with the feelings I've already described to you. Some good parts, some bad parts, generally mixed. But then I heard about the layoffs. On February 11th, the lead level designer, Alex Granner, said that most of the team at Wildlight was laid off.
Well, yeah, that makes total sense.
Rigger, Josh Sobel also confirmed he was laid off with the quote, most of the staff.
That makes sense.
While there are no exact numbers.
Nobody played the game, or at least nobody is playing the game currently. Nobody wanted the game to come out. And when it did come out and nobody played it, oh shit, we don't have an income source to be able to keep these employees.
To the amount of people laid off, Wildlight's team was about 100. So considering it was most of the team, I'd garner around 50 to 80 people were laid off. And this
Sure.
was the ultimate death knell for the game, the final nail in the coffin.
Yep.
Not because the game didn't have a chance to recover.
No, because they don't have any of the
optics
talent.
like this is specifically bad for anything that is looking to be a live service. Just a week or so ago, maybe a couple of weeks by the time this video comes out.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Riot's fighting
2XKO
game
got
2XKO
killed.
was reported to have major layoffs as well, just shortly after the game had launched. I was literally invited to the Riot event before the game's launch, and not every employee I had met there is still working there now. 2XKO as a game is not going to die. At least right now. It has a year's worth of content coming, and those will be coming out. But when a free-to-play game that specifically relies on the spending of cosmetics in a game states they've lost a ton of staff, why would players willingly spend money on a game that
nobody's going to play
as sinking? It's a strange perspective.
Not only that, but that nobody's going to play.
But one thing about gas games,
and you can discernibly see that nobody's going to play it because nobody is. You know what? What are we at on SteamDB? You know what? We'll look it up right now. SteamDB Highguard. Let's see. We're at a resounding 306 in-game with 460 a 24-hour peak. Okay, well, there's your answer. Right there.
The game will stick around in order to spend money on it. This isn't a $15 expansion pack anymore. People want to use and get the most out of their purchase. And considering so many live service games have been going to the graveyard lately, and all that money with it, not even to mention the whole...
There's also a reason why certain live service games, looking at Helldivers 2, why it's stuck around for so long is because the live service enhances the actual game, right? In most live service games, they don't do anything to enhance the game. They just are existent so that more people will pay more money.
Economy and everything, you're going to be pressed to keep consumer confidence in spending. Highguard has a whole year's worth of content ahead of it, as mentioned.
Highguard has a whole year's worth of content already developed for it and can come out, right? What do you think the chances are after that year? There is no more content. In fact, what do you think the chances are that this entire year's roadmap actually gets put out? I don't even think that they're making enough money in order to keep the lights on the servers, so they might not even be able to keep the game afloat until July.
Earlier, and as planned,
because usually this is made on
even as the layoffs were happening,
some protected income.
Another one of their playable characters to the game. As I am filming this, they made another major balance update, one of their many, to continue making the game more balanced. But all of that won't matter because now the optics are there. The main source of revenue from the game, as little as it might be, is going to dry.
Again, it's not even that the optics aren't there. If you had a good game, people would be playing the game. More people would be sticking around, right? So even like out of the 96,000 that we just saw players that played it on launch, if the game had bad optics but played really good, you would think they would have been able to retain those players. So it's just simply not the case that it is solely dependent on the bad optics.
Yeah. Shortly after the layoffs, the character and rigger dev who was let go, Josh Sewell, made a long-winded post about Highguard. He lamented on the game's reception from the Game Awards, the toxic gamer.
Considering they announced they're closing on March 12th.
Sadness and disappointment on how everything went on. This spawned an...
Wait, did they actually announce that they're closing on March 12th? No way. Is Highguard shutting down? Highguard is permanently shutting down on on March 12th, 2026, just 45 days lasted longer than Concord. Rest in piss. Oh my god, that is holy shit. Maybe oh man. Like I feel bad for the people who worked on the game because I obviously feel like it's something that they're proud of. However, I think the majority of the public disagrees with that sentiment. That is, man.
Absolute monstrous amount of articles and reactions, all specifically quoting the phrase, "We were turned into a joke from minute one," and many.
No, you were not turned into a joke from minute one. You were a joke from minute one because you made something that was neither dog shit nor amazing. You made something that was mid, and people were clowning on you because it was mid.
Many people saying that High Guard blames the gamers for why their game failed.
Ah, yes, it's our fault it failed.
And this is where I'm going to have to go on a rant of my own because the dude is like 90% motherfucking right.
I'm moving different. This shit ain't nothing to me, man.
Excuse me, I don't think that is the
I'm a
case.
dog. I'm biting the fart bubbles in the back.
The dude is completely right. It is unfair. It is extremely unfair. And so
Well,
much
maybe.
of what
Hang
he's
on.
saying is true. People spend all this time talking about how AAA sucks and gaming is dying and people aren't making stuff they want to make anymore.
We might
And
have to
team of
unpack
developers
this.
pull away, they go yank a bunch of money from Tencent and they run away from one of Lucifer's megacorps and says, "We can't do what we want on Apex, so we are going to do it ourselves with blackjack and
Okay,
hookers
okay,
and
okay.
a lot of Chinese
Come on.
money," only to then be
Let's get to the point.
immediately bombarded and compared to other failed video games. Like, am I taking crazy?
Okay. We're going to unpack this. First of all, no, it's not the gamer's fault. It's not the gamer's fault because if you are trying to get people to play your game, you have to make a good game. They obviously didn't make a good game because nobody stuck around. All the people who were paid promoters for the game almost couldn't muster a nice thing to say about the game, which should tell you that they are not having fun. It cannot be the gamer's fault for not wanting to play a game that they don't think is fun, first and foremost. And blaming the gamers is taking the onus off of you who made the crappy game, or rather made the mid game, in order to blame some esoteric other that has no decision-making power whatsoever in the game itself. Yes, people were clowning on you, but that's going to happen with everything. And they're clowning on you because you deserve to be clowned on. You didn't make the game that was worthy so far of the last spot on the Game Awards. That could be not your fault. Blame Jeff Keighley for that. Blame whoever put you in that spotlight. I think if you would have slow rolled it like you had wanted to, you probably would have released to maybe like 10,000 concurrent players just and probably retained about 2,000 of them. And lots of games can survive on 2,000 players. They can, but it's definitely not the gamer's fault. And in order to blame them, you're going to have to really, really, really show that they have the power in the relationship. The only power they have is to not play your game. Imagine. And that's not their fault. That's your fault for making a bad game.
Pills here. Is it such an insanely hot take to say maybe the game didn't deserve to be dragged through the mud after one trailer for it dropped? That just...
So I think yes, it did. Because we saw, or rather, maybe it didn't deserve it. I think maybe you're right that deserve is a strong word. However, I think it could have been expected because of what the game was and what it represents. If you didn't see this happening, then you are blind and not plugged into the overall gaming community. You should have expected gamers not to resonate with another hero shooter that has live service elements and with the overall game that it is. People are tired of these types of games. They don't want to play them. And the art style also was reminding them of other games that have either soured or that they dislike. It had a lot of hallmarks of things that people were looking at that said, we don't like this. And you would have known that if you were in the overall gaming community, which surprisingly enough is probably made up of about 80 to 90% of people who disagree with you.
Maybe it isn't a super ethical or kind thing to laugh and poke fun at a studio for laying off most of its staff because, haha, it's like Concord. Was I raised on a different planet, or
you were not raised on a different planet, and you are correct. In real life, you shouldn't be doing that. That's not right at all. However, this is the internet, and this is how people generally are going to react, especially when they've been being burned for the last decade on really shitty AAA games and really shitty games that have been coming out and being told that they have to like it. Again, you are trying to divorce the context in which this happened from the event happening. And I don't think that that's helpful. I think that's putting over, in my opinion, kind of glossing over a lot of problems that regular lay gamers have been having and minimizing them, trying to tell them that their problems aren't actually real problems.
Is this just
And of course, they're tired about hearing about it.
genuinely how it is now? Like, the dude goes on about how the internal feedback for the game was really positive and strong, and then he gets dogpiled that is a culture of toxic positivity like Concord was.
Well, yeah, if you're being told internally that your game's really good, and then other people, like when the public gets their hands on it and they say that it's actually not really that good, imagine people saying, oh yeah, that's toxic positivity. The only reason that you continued doing this is because people kept telling you you were doing the right thing. I think that it probably has a good percentage chance of having a toxically positive culture.
And I cannot disagree more. I played Concord. Highguard is miles better than Concord.
Right, that's miles better than Concord. But Concord still existed in that gap of not good enough to be called good and not bad enough to be called bad. It was like in the lower third quadrant of that at times, but it was competent enough that people considered it like an actual game, not an asset flip.
Miles. Its characters are not particularly inspiring, but come on, the side-by-side is night and day. It plays better
Sure.
than Concord. It sounded better than Concord. I say again, it deserves its mixed rating. But
Yes.
call me crazy, I believe him. I do believe that internally, people absolutely loved playing this game because the people at Wildlight are fucking shooter developers.
As far as I'm remembering, when they had people who got their hands on it as playtesters, they had the same opinion of, oh, it's okay. That technically is a positive reception. But there was like no criticism that was probably allowed or addressed.
They went to go
And we also don't know what internal builds they were developed or testing on either. They could have been testing on internal builds that had more than 3 players. They could have been a completely different game. We don't know what build they played on.
a hardcore competitive shooter. This is what they do. This is their background. They made Titanfall and Apex. Of course they like the game they made. Of course they're stoked about the game they made. Jeff Keighley says he loved the game so much he wanted to show it off. And you know what?
Are hero shooters just really popular now? I feel like every new game is a form of that. So howdy. So hero shooters are, quote, popular within game dev circles because, this is my opinion, by the way, this is not fact, this is my opinion, because they see the numbers of people playing things with hero elements in them and they think, oh, people must really like it. What's being lost in translation is people like the game for what it is, and they are mistakenly putting it on an aspect of the game that isn't exactly what the draw for most people are. And also, hello. I think that's probably what's happening. And I think the general gaming public is tired of hero-based things, honestly. Like, some people really like them. A lot of people really just don't want to see it in every game. They're fatigued is probably the better approach to that.
Kind of believe him. If this was the kind of game that was for you as it was for them, then yeah, it has potential. I feel like I'm going a little crazy. The dude spent the last half a decade of his life working on this game because he couldn't do what he wanted in his current job. They went to go do their own thing. They got their big funding and they set off to make the game.
Asking me to feel badly for somebody who went underneath this thing and still made a bad product is a large, or asking someone, rather, me is a little bit more strong, but asking someone to care about this is a very hard ask, because people at the end of the day don't care about the background noise of what's happening in game development. They only care if the game's good. And once the game comes out and they like it and it's a good game, then they care about the stories behind it. But first, you have to make a game that people want to play. You have to make a good game. And they didn't do it. So people aren't going to care. And you can't blame them for that because people don't care about things they don't care about.
Then
This
in the
just
course
in.
of
Human
a
nature is
month,
human nature.
One single month, the game is revealed, mercilessly shit on, review bombed into oblivion, and then him and all of his friends are.
And, of course, we might not be using the word deservedly, but should have been expectedly. I'm sorry, I hit my mic. It should have been expected that that was going to happen. Again, hero games work if you actually complete the experience with lovable designs and both in designs and mechanics with good gameplay. They keep expecting heroes aspects to carry the rest. Yes. Just put the game on the shelf. Well, you're going to be happy to hear that the game, as Nova has said, is shutting down on March 12th. It will be permanently shelved.
The butt of the joke because Highguard is kind of mid. I'm sorry, no, I reject that premise. I reject the idea that a developer can have to deal with shit like this and have a completely justified.
Okay, you reject the idea that they have to deal with shit like that. Okay, so then every game that comes out that's bad, we shouldn't be telling or giving them any type of criticism. Like, I don't think that this is correct. Because I think if you're going to be putting, so that's one thing that I have to deal with, at least mentally, is obviously I'm trying to become a creator, or I'm a creator. I have to live with the cognitive dissonance that I have to expect people to not like my stuff. That should be the same for a video game. You should expect people to not like it. In fact, it tells me more about the developers that they didn't expect this because they expected it to be received at least okay. Especially because in the current gaming context and landscape, people don't want these types of games. They're fucking tired of them. And the fact that they didn't know that tells me they know nothing of the greater gaming community. Because they don't care, or they put them in the bucket of people that they don't agree with, so they're not going to listen to them. And here we are, where you're shutting down literally 45 days later because you were too proud of yourself to look at whether or not other people are going to resonate with it. You doubted my intel while I was AFK. I didn't doubt your intel. I just checked it to make sure. I was more like, oh, is that really true?
Viable clapback and get put to the stake for it after everything that happened? No. Do I think Highguard would have succeeded even if it had its shadow drop and no VGA treatment?
No.
Probably not. Probably not. No. But I don't think.
Okay, so then what's your problem?
Wrong. If it decided to do its shadow drop, it was on its own thing, and it was just this random thing that came out from the ex-Titanfall and ex-Apex devs, I think it would have been looked at with a different light. I do think it would have been hey, these guys went to go make this game. It's not perfect, but it's doing some weird stuff. And this is kind of interesting type thing. That's more what it would look like as opposed to immediate bombarding.
I think that you might be correct in the time frame, the temporal space in which it would exist. I think that it probably would have been one of those games where a lot of people have been like, hey, there's some interesting things being done in this game and some not so interesting things done in this game. But eventually the negative reviews probably would have caught up with them because either that and people just not caring enough to leave a negative review and just not playing the game, or giving them unfiltered criticism that's warranted, such as, but not limited to, why the fuck is there mounts in the game? Why didn't you change the maps to fit a 3v3 style if originally you wanted to do 8v8s, 5v5s, so on and so forth? And I think that maybe they could have grown from that, maybe they couldn't have. But it still would have been received poorly. I don't think that you could get around that.
Do I think that
in one way or another
immediately like it because it was shadow drop? No, absolutely not. I genuinely think that the entire idea around the game would have been different. The guy blames toxic gaming culture for the
maybe
Highguard, but he doesn't really fully.
It would have bought them more time, probably. Yeah.
He says that it just
instead of dying immediately in 45 days, they would have died probably over the course of a year.
Played a role, and it wasn't the entire reason. And I can't disagree with him. I mean, as someone like myself, like a streamer,
I can.
example,
I can disagree with him substantively, and I can disagree with him substantively because you didn't make a good game, and you think you made a good game. Clearly, we have two opinions that are clearly at odds. I'm talking, of course, not to Bricky, but to the game dev. If you thought that this was going to succeed and you were proud of this game, then my suggestion to you is go outside and touch some grass. Because people do not want these types of games. And when they see these types of games, they're not going to enjoy it. They're not going to play it. Because they've already been burned so many times before. And they are fatigued. Now, this could be a problem of your development cycle. Maybe you started developing this game at the end of when hero shooters were being a thing. That could be not your fault. That could just be you going, oh, we just started at the wrong time. Okay, that's fair. You had a flop. Admit it for what it is. It's a flop. Stop trying to say that it's not, it's somebody else's fault. At the end of the day, the buck stops with you and your studio. Move on to your next project. If it's smaller, it's smaller. Try to find something that you like to do. Try to find something that other people also like to play and make that. There's also no argument to be said that Jeff is also looked at with suspicion, so people were already locked into critique mode. We're not even going to get into the Jeff Keighley stuff. Like I said, I've been watching Jeff Keighley ever since he was on XPlay. And progressively, his opinions about video games have been getting worse and worse and worse over time. I think that a lot of people approach Jeff now with the same type of approach that they approach an estranged family member, where they kind of have to like him because he's always been there, but they really don't like talking to him or listening to his opinions.
Never stream Highguard, because if I did, all I would deal with the entire time is people asking me, oh, why are you playing Concord 2, Bricky? Oh, are you going to try out the new marathon treatment?
If you're bothered by this, then I don't know. I don't think you should be. I think those are just jokes and people are joking about it.
I hope you enjoy playing this game now before it's gone in 1 month. Like, I just don't want to fucking deal with that. So I'm not going to play Highguard. I'm not going to have to subject myself to that kind of constant toxic chat because it's super annoying. Whereas at least if it was the Shadow Drop version, maybe I would be able to get away as a bunch of people come into the chat.
I don't think so. I think this game is going to be called Concord 2, regardless of whether or not it's Shadow Dropped or not.
And ask, what in the world is this game? Oh, it's free? I guess I'll give it a shot. See, the game probably still wouldn't have succeeded.
Maybe not. I don't know. Like I said, we don't live in a timeline where that happened, so speculating on that is 6 to 1, half a dozen the other. Who knows?
Because even if they went back to the 8v8 gameplay and changed the game to fit exactly what people wanted, the game's hero design and art design are not inspiring enough to make people want to spend money on it. The only source of income in this free-to-play game are the cosmetics, and unfortunately,
well, also the player
are
count
not
too.
Interesting enough to warrant spending money, at least not to me. But I would have much rather preferred it.
Again, this is all stemming from they thought that people would want to do that. The core underlying issue is the devs. They are the ones that tonally were mismatched with the broader gaming community.
Come to its normal conclusion instead of having the internet try to speed run its demise. So
Again,
no,
it's not the internet that did that.
Maybe it would have had a slightly higher chance if the VGA stuff didn't happen and if it was Shadow Drop, because at that point maybe there would,
I think they would have totally made a year,
some kind of general time
1 year, and then they probably wouldn't have gotten enough cash flow in order to have maintained the game. They would have probably immediately also hit their entire studio with layoffs as soon as they got maybe again 5,000 to 6,000 players on free to play at the very beginning at their launch, and continued bleeding them throughout the year. They probably would have gotten enough money and enough rationale to keep their studio on full staff for about a month or two, but then they probably would have had to let them go.
Bubble in the entire world's consciousness. He makes an actual point. The consumer has a lot of power, and a shitload of people put a lot of effort into immediately review bombing the game, and it does have an effect. He's not wrong. But
again, is it unwarranted though? Because the problem is a lot of these criticisms were probably valid. The game was boring. You even say it was boring. The art design wasn't anything to write home about. Everybody was saying that. And the core complaint that people were having was going unaddressed and being told it's their fault for not liking the game. It's not their fault.
Even if the game had just gone its course and died normally, I could have at least written it off as a valiant effort and given them a good old better luck next time and not dance on their...
But it wasn't a valiant effort because they're not paying attention to the gaming public. It would have been a valiant effort if they had tried to do something that basically would have gotten the gaming public to be like, yes, this is everything that we want. The gaming public for the last decade has been screaming, we don't want this. And then you still put something out that's the same thing that they say they don't want.
Fucking graves. I can't believe I stand here today and have to act like this is a hot take, but here we are. Partially, I think it's a sign of the times. I think the jadedness of the live service genre has been felt so far.
Yes.
Wide. A massive amount of people have spent money on games that now lie buried, or a watch of something beloved has fallen to corporate greed
Yes.
or worse. Highguard maybe was where they all turned their sights to, and I think they shot the wrong person. This game is
No.
not an example of corporate...
No, it is an embodiment of all the malpractice within the industry being personified in the new games that are coming out.
greed. It's an example of a lot of people making a game they really liked in a time where that kinship is not shared by the industry at large. Maybe 5 years ago, this would have done gangbusters. If times were different.
No, a decade ago, this might have done gangbusters. 5 years ago, this might have been like something people would get into as their secondary game. Or after their first like game died, they'd go to this game. But now it's just way too saturated.
And fatigue hadn't set in.
That's the
But it
wrong word.
didn't.
Saturated is the wrong word. Way too fatigued. The gaming public is way too fatigued by these games.
And it won't. The death knell has already been sounded, and unless a miraculous comeback occurs, it will indeed be offline or on life support in
Well, it's going offline on the 12th.
a year or two. Future Bricky addendum here, a little extra bit thrown into the video. When I
Here
first
we
played
go.
Highguard, it was out of curiosity.
Oh, I thought he was going to
therefore little
talk
to
about it
none of
going
was
out in
filmed.
March
Of course,
12th.
I wasn't expecting to make a video on it. But as I played more of the game this last week to get footage for this video, the feeling that Highguard was the wrong thing shot by the public became more and more prominent. The 5v5 mode is substantially more enjoyable than the 3v3.
Yeah,
And I
because there's
actually
more
found
people on the
myself
map.
excited
Imagine.
to play it again for footage. Like, I was excited to load up Highguard. Now, I've played a lot of live service shooters, and I
The
was
saturation
sitting
on this
there
is burning my
shocked
corneas.
that I was having more fun with Highguard than I was with Apex, Rainbow Six, Fortnite, or anything Call of Duty was putting out. Now, I understand the risk I take by putting the onus on
Would you have been playing this in your free time if you weren't trying to grab footage for the game? That's my first question.
players as opposed to developers. But the more I play, the more I think just how ridiculous it is to review bomb a game because the people who made Titanfall didn't do it again, as if that was a choice they had.
I think that's fairly reductive to people who had legitimate problems with this game.
As if there's some sort of say over people's choices and how they spend their jobs and their creative visions they want to pursue. Wildlight literally stated they did not want to make a sci-fi game all of their lives, and they wanted to go off and do their own thing, and they were bit for it. And
Okay. This is still fantasy sci-fi though. The guns and the technology is being augmented by magic, but it's still sci-fi.
even if they could have stayed and made Titanfall 3,
Ish.
are you 1000% sure that under Electronic Arts' regime at the current moment, they would make the Titanfall you would truly enjoy?
I don't think EA can make a game that I would truly enjoy even if they had to save someone's life.
A video game is held up by its casual player base, by the everyman who is not as in tune with the internet and says, hey, let me check out that game and see. So when they only see article upon article of vitriol, video after video of Concord comparisons, and the game review bomb.
I don't think it was article after article. I don't think print articles were nearly as critical as this game as content creators were. And as we know, content creators are now more trusted as a source of like gaming news than articles, because articles so far are run by journalists, and nobody likes journalists anymore.
into oblivion,
They trust
yeah,
somebody who they
that's
can
going
form
to
somewhat of a
affect their
connection with
purchase or their
over
time
a
and
blank
wanting to download the game.
person.
It's not like we have a lot of free storage space nowadays. The fact Highguard was actually able to recover all the way to a mixed rating from the beating it took is actually insanely impressive. I'm sorry, but the developer was right. It isn't the only reason it failed, but it absolutely played a part.
I don't know if that's as good of anecdotal evidence as we think it is. Because let's just go ahead and say that maybe they deleted a bunch of reviews, or a bunch of reviews that were um sub 2 hours where people were clowning on it. Maybe they got rid of a bunch of reviews like that. Let's just go ahead and say that. Then it's still mixed, because that means that people who've been playing the game for more than 2 hours probably didn't have as like had a 50% opinion on it. Maybe more people started returning and giving them thumbs up reviews. It's obviously not enough to have kept them around.
The thing is, it doesn't matter if people thought the game was good or not, or for them or not. Video games are such a plethora of genres, styles, mechanics. It doesn't matter if people fucked with Highguard, but just maybe the team who made it didn't need to be ran out of town before it even launched. Anyway, back.
You know what? We'll just let him keep going.
It's a
I think
sad
I've beleaguered
story.
this enough.
It's not one I like to discuss, and it's not one that should be celebrated by anyone, even if that was where it was going to end up, Game Awards or not. I stand here in this really weird cognitive dissonance where, like, yeah, I think the treatment of the game, the developers, and more is very unempathetic and just kind of awful to watch, and simultaneously, yeah, the game.
How can you expect people on the internet to have empathy for something they don't care about? You're talking to people who don't view the internet or view other people as like living, breathing agents, because people on the internet just don't. You must expect your reception on the internet to be negative. That's just how it is. People get lucky sometimes and it's not negative. You know, I'm one of those people. My reception from my audience has been incredibly positive. I expected it not to be positive, because I think that's a healthy mindset to have, because people on the internet are not nice. That's just how it is.
It's pretty mid. It has some good parts here and there. It's certainly not like awful terrible, but yeah, the game is pretty mid. It doesn't mean they deserved this then or now. I also don't feel this.
Again, they
need
should have
to
expected it.
Hyperanalyze every single word of one of 100 developers of a studio who spent 5 years on this, immediately got shit on, and then fired. I can't imagine what that would ever do to your mental state.
Well, you can't hyperanalyze the immediate words of that person, sure, but you can analyze it in a little bit of like an abstract and think, oh, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. You can come away with that takeaway really easily without even having to like pick apart every sentence that he says, just as public statements. It points in a direction, and people are really good at following that direction.
And I'm sorry, I just don't necessarily think taking pot shots at them for that and having them speak on behalf of the entire team is fair. Do I think the game maybe was in a bad time? Absolutely. Do I think that the people in Wildlight maybe liked their stuff a bit more than the wider public would have? Absolutely. Do I think that perchance what they aimed for in this genre, in this realm, in this style was wrong? 100%.
Okay.
Do I think Highguard would have made it again? I don't think so.
Okay. So you are claiming that they don't deserve what happened to them. Then what do they deserve? Because in just a complete vacuum and in just a complete, like, we'll just go ahead and just narrow it down to this. What do they deserve? They definitely don't deserve players. They don't deserve positive reviews. They don't deserve negative reviews. They don't deserve to have people air their grievances and criticisms at them. They just deserve to put their game out there and have no critique or feedback whatsoever. Like, I don't know what you're trying to say is, I don't know what you're trying to claim that should have happened. Because it should have been expected that they were going to get clowned on if they had a bad game. And it should have been expected that if they had a good game, people were going to praise it. I don't know. That just seems like reality to
I
me.
still don't think this was the way. Honestly, if you like competitive team shooters, the game is free. Give it a shot, I suppose, if you don't mind killing an hour or two. I wouldn't necessarily say that everyone should go out and try it, but like if you like this kind of game.
So you don't even think that people should try it, that it's free to play, and you are trying to then tell us that we shouldn't have been clowning on it. And I'm using we in like the collective sense, not we as in the I inclusive sense. I'm getting like, what are you trying to say here?
You may find it enjoyable a little bit, kill a few hours, have a time with some friends.
Because you're telling me
else.
two different
I
things.
would not recommend spending any money, as even if the layoffs didn't happen, I don't think a lot of stuff is very inspiring, but the layoffs did all happen, so I don't think it's going to be around for very
well. The game's not going to be along
I like
for very
parts of
much
the
longer
game.
anyway, because
The
it's
other parts of the
closing
game,
on
I
March
think where
12th.
it stands right now at mixed is the right place for it. I think the hate is both overblown, and it's still not simultaneously a fantastic game. But that's nuance, baby. We need more of that in the world. Anyway,
Sure, we
getting a
do
lot
need
of
more
stuff
nuance.
today coming from the chest.
However, I don't know if it's a good take to say, yes, they made a bad game and also we don't need to be clowning on it. When, again, we live in a context in which people's normal voices are being essentially ignored and censored through the apparatus that is the games industry. How else do you expect them to be able to communicate their actual criticisms or even communicate to like the overall industry that they don't want this? I think his argument is that the reception shouldn't have necessarily been complete scorched earth. Again, I think that ignores the context in which we find ourselves, because that is the only option that the gaming public has left. At least as far as I've been able to see, because nobody's listening to them. I don't know. I think this ignores the context in which this released.
A lot from the chest. Maybe I'm a bit naive. Perchance I could be naive, but I don't know.
It's okay to be naive.
And I feel bad.
And that to some extent, Highguard is a victim of
especially
being
since,
judged
like,
by the
so many-
predecessors.
Some of my friends
I think it's not being judged by its predecessors. I think it's being contextualized by its predecessors. I think it's being judged accurately, that it's mixed, but that's being amplified by the context in which it released.
in the games industry and that kind of thing, and it's just it sucks to, because you imagine your
like, we're not
friends
even
working on a game,
like we're not even like we're not we'll finish this, but
decisions are not anywhere
we're not
even
even like
close to what he would
recognizing
decide,
the environment that it
or
released to.
what she would want, and you just
That's why I
can't
say it should have been
imagine being in
expected.
their position, and so maybe it's naivete, or maybe
I can, what, honestly, I can imagine being in their perspective. If I created something that people said, oh, I don't like this, my first reaction to that would be okay, then don't play it, don't watch it. Like, sure, maybe somebody could be screaming about my content and saying, I hate this guy, I hate this guy, I hate this guy. But at the end of the day, if I'm doing what I want and doing what I want to do, then to me, it doesn't matter what that person who hates me says. And if they really, really wanted that, they would have had the same approach to it. At least that's what I would think.
Thanks for watching. It's depressing, good lord.
I wouldn't be blaming other people.
Highguard,
I wouldn't be blaming other people for my failure. I'd be blaming myself for my failure.
but yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching. Happy New Year and all that stuff. I'll see you for Mass Effect next time. This time actually.
Hell yeah.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Well, let's see. So you're describing judgment by guilt of the predecessor, though. No, we're not ascribing or describing judgment by guilt of the predecessor. We're saying that the overall gaming public are not happy with the direction of the games industry, and because they're not happy with the direction of the games industry, it is amplifying the response to games uh that go counter to what they're requiring or asking for, especially because they're being ignored. I don't think that they're judging it based on that, because I think the judgment of the game is reasonable. That of like all the people who are like figureheads within gaming, like from everybody from people who played the game like Shroud and Doki Bird to people like, we'll just say more hyperbolically, like Asmongold and his audience. While they are talking about that and they're basically giving their opinion about it, their opinion wasn't, well, this game is dog shit. Their opinion was it's just a meh. The overall reception of it was on point, is that it's a meh. The problem is the context in which this meh released. And that amplified the way in which they were looking at it, or the way in which, in my opinion, they responded to it. I don't know. That's just my opinion. That's how I see it. And I think a lot of game devs ignore the generalized public, because they're not part of the generalized gaming public. At least that's what it seems like. That's why indie games are usually always on point, is because they engage with the overall gaming public. They know what they do and do not want. I don't know. That's just, like I said, that's just my opinion. Anyway, I think that we are going to skip the Riot video today. And that's because this Bricky video lasted 1 hour and 35 minutes. So we're going to go right on to Marathon, because I want to talk about Marathon today. You get to hear me talk about Marathon. We like Endymion. Endymion is a pretty cool guy. Just for context, Marathon came out as a new shooter by Bungie. Surprising that we're talking about shooters again. And I don't really know much about what happened through the playtest, so guess we're going to find out today.
I want to start this off by saying I've been a fan of Bungie games for many, many years. Most of my life.
I'm sorry, bro.
I remember playing Halo for the first time when it first came out and loving it. And falling in love even more with Destiny when that finally released. Destiny at its core was actually everything I wanted in a game. Halo, but with space magic pretty much. Dude, that was amazing. But eventually Destiny also started to fall off too. The devs...
I remember that Destiny released really controversially. I don't really remember the controversy, but I know a lot of people were not happy with the way in which it released. And, you know, Destiny 2 has its own controversies as well, where they have certain things that you've purchased that you're not able to play anymore. I don't know. I don't really like that aspect of the Destiny games.
Content fast enough. The drip feeding of its story was nothing short of insulting, and the game's PvP game modes especially, those became borderline unplayable due to all of the systems and everything else going on in those games. But before we begin, let's start with a brief mention from the sponsor of this video, Snacksy.
I definitely know that, like,
app you can use on your mobile devices or on your web browser that allows you
a lot of problems with game balance also came in from that game.
All you gotta do is sign up for the app, clicking an eligible game to play, and link it to your account. Then you can just play games and go through milestones you achieve, and then you can redeem your game time for things like PlayStation or even Amazon and PayPal gift cards as well. Use my link to download Snacksy and get an up to $10.
This is a new sponsor. I've never seen a sponsor like this.
And start earning right away.
Never heard of them.
But a reminder that you should open this link on your mobile device for the best experience possible.
1
yes,
million.
It's as it sounds. Sign up, play the games you enjoy, and earn real rewards. You can even link your PayPal account to it so you can make the payouts reach you even easier. It's a simple way to make your game time pay you back in ways that reward you. It really is just that easy. Just open Snacksy, swipe through the offers in Games Discovery, pick a game you
Canadian
like.
dollars.
Apart from PayPal or Amazon, you can even redeem your points for Netflix gift cards or even turn your points into credit that you can use on Xbox, Steam, Nintendo, or PlayStation storefronts. So if you want to start earning while you're playing your favorite mobile games, check the link in the description or pinned comment and download Snacksy and start earning.
What is this ad? What are we watching in this ad?
And now let's get back to it. Despite all of this, Bungie could have made a blank slate and made a Destiny 3, took all that feedback and just made something amazing.
They could have.
We have Marathon. As you obviously know, Marathon just had its server slam test go live, which is a free public...
By the way, for people who don't know, Marathon's controversy has a couple of things to do with its art style, the fact that it's another extraction shooter, a lot of things that people are fatigued about. But there was another major controversy about art assets in this game. And Marathon basically just took a bunch of art assets that they thought were stock assets, but were actually some part of somebody's portfolio, and stuck it in the game with like no corrections, no redactions, just put it on things. And when that person found out, it was like, dude, they just stole my art.
Beta where you get to try Marathon free of charge, of course, and then engage with its many systems. So I, like many, did just
Also,
that.
this is probably
Downloaded
coming
the
out for
beta,
money
jumped in on
too.
stream so that my thoughts could be heard unfiltered, and I walked away after playing Marathon with one critical thought
All
in
right,
my
let's
brain
go.
that I couldn't shake. And that was that this might be the death of Bungie, and no, I'm not kidding. Look, I don't
That's not
want
good.
to be negative here, but the reality is that Marathon was kind of Bungie's last chance at survival before Sony begins gutting the entire studio with a bloody hatchet. You see, like I said, Destiny was
Okay.
great when it first came out. For me anyways, it hit its peak in the Forsaken era. And Final Shape was also good. Not amazing, but pretty good. And after that, I just kinda never went back. I put Destiny behind me like many others did too. And all I've seen about Bungie since Final Shape is Destiny fans being disappointed by Edge of Fate, that Star Wars expansion that came and went.
So I know a lot of people, a lot of Destiny players. I have some Destiny players who are like my, IRL friends. They are reluctant to say that they dislike the direction that it's been going, and that they dislike the game. But every time I hear them talk about it, it's rarely something positive.
And that new seasonal structure, which was not well received either. The answer to any claims was always, don't worry guys, Bungie is gonna make the comeback we all need because they're putting it all into Marathon. It's gonna be amazing.
I don't
And
know
have
about
to
that
say,
one.
guys, after playing it myself, Marathon kind of doesn't even really need to exist at all, if I'm being honest. Alright, so how
Ooh,
was it? of
that's
course?
not
Well,
good.
if I had to rate Marathon on the low end, I would give it maybe a 5 out of 10.
I'm not gonna lie, I hate this art style of this game. Like, I loathe it. I don't know what it is, but I don't like postmodernism. Like, generally as an aesthetic, this feels really postmodern to me. This is not the art style for me.
Average gamer slop, I guess. On the high end, it hits about maybe a 6 at best. I find the NPCs having compelling looks to them at least. The actual look of the art direction is interesting to me somewhat, but the world itself, it feels
Interesting,
like I'm in
sure.
some weird
Desirable,
Roblox
no.
sanitized jungle gym or something. It doesn't feel like a world where a human colony apparently existed at any moment, which is, by the way, what you're rating. There's no real signs that like humans really lived there where you're excavating. It's just instead boring office buildings and oil tanker looking environments everywhere. I think it would have been far more interesting if the world was an alien planet instead of an abandoned human colony that's
Yeah,
on
maybe.
an alien planet, if that makes sense. Like if there were alien artifacts to discover, weird shrines to plunder, actual things to actually want to excavate.
I've also heard
would
that
be a
the
far
UI
more
is like
compelling
super
point.
dog shit
Like,
for
why
this
would
game.
multiple factions in space?
Like, I'm not being hyperbolic. Those were the words that were articulated to me, that the UI is just dog shit.
Sending down these robots to excavate random bits of industry metal or components that humans made. Couldn't they just easily create those things themselves in the factories they probably already have off planet? Like, nothing you collect in the game, for me anyway so far, feels like something that I cared about collecting in the first place. Then there's the UI. I
Oh,
don't
here
even
we
know,
go.
man. It's a complete mess. I just have to be honest with you. This falls into that same sin of being a menu simulator where you want to launch the game proper. There's just way too many sub-menus. Too many things to click on to make the things that you want to happen. There's no social zone either, which is very bizarre. Like, you would think they would have that so you can run around and see other people in their shells with their
Kind of looks
charms
like
and
a
their
soft Lego, which looks weird against the other textures. Yeah. I mean, we did talk about design language earlier. I mean, it's definitely easy to see the characters stick out from it, but, at what cost?
skins and whatever, which are the characters you play in the game, by the way. But instead, it's all just launched from a menu. You don't even
Also, by the way, this is another hero shooter too, I think, because I think they have characters that you play.
even see your shells entering the orbit. The game just starts, and then you're just there somehow, inexplicably, and then the
That's
game
weird.
just starts. Okay, at least some positives, all right? I
I'm
was
gonna be completely fair about that. This was a server slam, so they're not maybe 100% finished with the game. That might be a limitation of this being essentially an earlier build with undone assets or undone loading screens. Who knows? It could be any number of things. So this could be not held against the game. This could be held against the game, but I think that probably will get smoothed out upon a release. Like I said, this is releasing for, oh God, how many? I think it's going to be releasing for $70.
Say the gunplay feels good. I mean, it has to be because it's literally just the Destiny systems of mechanics placed in another game. So yes, at least shooting things feels good. The feedback of shooting things is great, but it leads to another big problem, which is, where the hell are all the enemies in this game? Like, the game is called Marathon because all you really do is run around wondering when the game starts to get good because there's really
This is also a spiritual successor to the first game series that Bungie did by the same name, Marathon. So a lot of people who were Marathon and Bungie fans, like long-term fans, weren't very happy about this game because it didn't feature any of the aspects of the actual Marathon game.
nothing to shoot at most of the time. It reminds me, and let me explain, but Marathon actually kind of reminds me of High Guard in the worst ways possible. High Guard
Okay.
also has very little shooting until the sword phase starts proper, and Marathon feels a lot like this too. In every match
That's
that I
not
played
good.
a Marathon, I think only one match maybe I shot more than 10 PvE enemies, but every other match alongside the randoms that I was playing
$39.99 with
we
59
ran into
deluxe. Okay.
maybe 3 or 4 PvE
Still $40 for this though.
enemies at best an entire match, which means for the most part,
Like if you're comparing it to High Guard, saying it's basically the same game or it has basically the same gameplay loop and one was free and one's $40, how badly is this one going to do?
you're kind of just running around looking at things, checking if there's any items anywhere. But weirdly, so much of this game's
$40
environment has
like,
very
I'll be completely fair. $40 nowadays for a lot of people is a lot of money. And I can't blame them necessarily. Like, to be discerning about what you are purchasing as a luxury good definitely is something that a lot of people need to do. And if a game looks like it's not going to be fun or if there's problems with the game that are articulated or discernible, people aren't going to want to spend money on it.
little to interact with. Office buildings with papers on tables and phones just left abandoned with nothing interesting to interact with. And when there is something to open, half the time it's something boring. Every item has like a word salad of explanation for what it does.
Oh,
or
that's
what it
not good.
means, which is actually bad because in this sort of game, you
Yeah.
kind of need to keep moving. You need the description.
Can't
of
really
these
sit there
items
and
to be
read.
short and sweet. Like, what does this item do? Let me know so I know to pick it up or not. Because can you be quick? Because I could be shot in the face while reading these novels of explanations that the developers left on every single item in the game. Then there's the ammo, which is kind of scarce, which is weird considering this is a game where you want to be shooting things. Apparently,
That's
I
not good.
think so. And finding ammo is also weirdly
A shooter game that doesn't allow you to have ammo?
not very convenient either. And the quests
Of
so
course,
far are pretty
these could all be balance aspects from a previous version of the game too that could be fixed on launch. So optimistically, that might just be a limitation of the server test. Who knows?
standard stuff that you've seen a dozen times before. Kill some PvE enemies. Turn on that relay. Yet
I'll
the
give
game
you-
doesn't really
I'll
do a
give you
good
that I
job
do
of
like the
telling
use
you
of
where
bright
any
colors.
relay is or how exactly it is to
Again, it is high contrast, which is a point in the direction of people being able to see visually what's happening. Again, though, I think the colors that they use are a little bit they're off-putting to me.
find the thing that you're looking for because again, the UI and just everything in this game is so confusing. I had a quest where I had to turn on a relay, and it turns out
Sure.
after like 3 missions that I figured out, oh, the mission doesn't want me to spawn on the map that I am currently spawning on, but they want me to go play in another one. If that's the case, why not indicate that better? I'm as much at war with this game's UI as I am with
Again,
the many enemies in the game,
unfortunately,
too.
this is
Like,
something that could be
nothing
fixed in
feels
the
like it was
future,
thought
but
through. It's instead like a map.
I do want to add some context to when I say things will be fixed in the future. The context that I want to add is it is indicative of modern game practices that these problems will also be on release launch. Because a lot of the times, if a demo or something like this has these problems, they don't get fixed. So the context being that it could be fixed in the future is usually about like a 50-50 guarantee that it will be. And if it's got 10 problems and only 5 of them get fixed, those other 5 problems probably are enough to turn people off of the game regardless.
Massive vomit of just neon colors and exposition that I have honestly no time to read because my teammates have already left the building and me defenseless, and I don't want my back exposed if an enemy shows up and kills me. You also die very quickly in
Oh
this game
gosh, that
too,
hurt
for
my
both
corneas.
the PvE and the PvP enemies alike. And this is where the powers come into mind, I guess, and each shell has their abilities, but honestly, the majority of them don't feel interesting to use because the game doesn't present any scenarios where they feel like they should be utilized as often as they should. I mostly use the shield guy named Destroyer because at the very least the shield you have is something that makes sense in this game.
Okay, so what he's saying, at least from what I can understand, is you have powers in the game, but they're not utilized in a way that's meaningful. That's a little
It
worrisome.
blocks damage, dub, I know.
It
And
is
the
a little
same Shell
worrisome.
Super is basically a rocket system, which makes sense, I guess, to just blast enemies
Rarely do they
away.
ask
But
players
again,
which issues
most
they
of
would
the
like to
time, it just
prioritize.
doesn't
Yeah.
feel usable because there's
Like the only real type of like developers that care if issues need to be prioritized are indie games. Like again, to proselytize indie games. But the other thing that I always find is that when you do give an actual criticism or some type of like suggestion to AAA games or people are asking for it, it usually takes a really Herculean effort to get them to change something.
barely any enemies to find in the
Almost
game
bureaucratic
already.
in a
Most
way.
matches went kind of like this, all right? You find maybe 2 PvE enemies, you shoot them, and then either you're found by an enemy team and immediately wiped out because you die so quickly, or you're the ones finding another team that doesn't see you and then you wipe them out fast the same way. It just feels like there's no time to react to anything, and one time I was even spawned near poisonous flowers or something as I began a game, with the game giving me also, by the way, no knowledge that such concepts even existed in the game before this. So I was walking and then boom, I'm poisoned. I literally
So those types of mechanics in games are okay if they're utilized in a way that helps elevate the game experience, but it can be frustrating for people to get into the game with. It's very interesting that they'd have that. They probably do need to again, this is another one of those problems that they need to fix in UI and some type of player information that probably they're not going to
literally
fix.
just started the match and now I'm
Like the first time somebody spawns into a match, gets poisoned by a flower, and is immediately playing on their last leg, if they're just a regular 1 game a day gamer, they're gonna put this game down and never play it again.
dying. Okay, thanks, I guess. And then there's the healing UI. It's at least fine, I guess. It's like down on the D-pad for healing. And then you can swap the items with your analog stick from like the shield to the health or status effects. But my God, dude, another problem again. Because even then, it's just a lot of busy work. There's too much stuff to keep
So
track of
wait.
here. Like
You have to switch your UI?
yes, it's like down on the D-pad for healing, and then you can swap the items with your analog stick from like the shield to the health or status
Oh,
effects.
okay.
But my God, dude, another problem again. Because even then, it's just a lot of busy.
Yeah, that's a
work.
lot
There's
of
too much
that's a
stuff
lot of
keep
things to
track of
control
here.
with
Like you
with a
need to have
controller.
items equipped to heal your health bar, but you also need shield regens. Okay, that's fine, I guess. But then you also need to waste space on specific ailment items that you also need to waste space for ammo as well too. And your inventory is already small as is, so you're basically wasting most of your inventory space on these essentials before you even begin the game, which then leaves very little room
That's
to
rough.
actually collect the things in the world, which is
That's Monster Hunter
kind of
controls
the
in a
point of
shooter.
the game.
Yeah, kind of. I don't, like I said, I obviously haven't got my hands on this game. But I'm sure there's probably a little bit of a difference. But Monster Hunter has a lot of different types of things where they don't have to account for other, high moment to moment stuff. In Monster Hunter, you get a little bit of time to actually do some inventory management in the middle of a fight because of the way that the game is structured, right? But in a game like this where every second counts in a way, that could definitely be a make or break for some people.
It just, I don't know, it all feels at odds with itself. Healing items, status effect items, like that should just be the same thing for simplicity. If I get poisoned or
I
damaged,
could kind of agree to
same
that.
item should just heal both, and if I want to waste it, that's my decision, because that's what healing means in a game like this. But those are the intricacies I hear some people say, but no, in a game like this, you need the systems to get yourself back
Oh no,
into
I'm
the fight
criticizing it.
to
I
be
don't want a
simple
shooter
do.
to have
Otherwise,
Monhun
it just
controls.
leads to too much
I think that if you had a slow paced shooter, Monhun controls could work. but you'd have to make a very specific type of game for it. It'd probably have to be a third-person game, and the TTK would have to be fairly high. At least that's
Wasted
like,
inventory.
and there'd have to be a lot of other things going in the game. Like, obviously, it would be a really hard design to work around. I think you could do it, but if you don't, the percentage chance that you do it improperly and flop the game on it is a lot higher than the percentage chance of you succeeding.
Space and too much busy work, which then distracts you from engaging with what the game wants you to engage with in the first place, which is, oh, I don't know, playing the damn game. The game also commits another cardinal sin that live service games need to stop doing, which is having way too much dialogue. Like when you're back at base and you're talking to Oni, which is
Oh,
basically
man.
like this NPC.
Anybody else fatigued with the main character expositing at you everything that's happening? You walk into a room, oh man, this is an empty room. You walk out, the sun. You walk by a very obvious design element or design thing that they want you to interact with. I think I missed something. There's a chest over there. Oh, good thing I saw the chest. Yeah, I think
You're right,
everybody's
that's
tired of
kinda
that.
like your Ghost from Destiny, if you want a comparison. Anyways, Oni just vomits paragraph after paragraph of exposition at you to explain what something is, who these people are, what's going on, which would be fine if this wasn't in a multiplayer game. You see, these sorts of
Right.
games don't need so much exposition because the
If you wanted
majority
to,
of players
if
will
you wanted to make a solo player game, make a solo player game.
honestly just skip it out of impatience because they're there to play the game, not stare at a
You
static
know, honestly,
screen while
I'm pretty sure there's probably a huge market for like a solo player experience, like an extraction shooter that's solo player, that's balanced and geared towards having one player on the map. I think a lot of people would very much like
some
that.
NPC speaks with
Sure, there's some
nothing
like that.
happening.
I
If
probably
you play
haven't
a
played it,
single-player
but
game, I guess it's not as bad. But even then, I could feel myself going, "Oh my god, dude! Bungie, they haven't learned anything from Destiny when they made this, did they? Like all the same problems persist: lack of understanding what players want, drip-fed story, way
Yeah.
too many menus and busy work. And honestly, the more I played Marathon, it just didn't feel unique at all to me. Then there's the actual worlds you explore, as in like the zones. Like that's what they kind of feel like. They feel like Destiny zones, if you will. If you haven't played Destiny, basically you can load into the various planets and whatnot, and then they have these big zones that you can explore. Not really open world, but like open-ended, I guess. Then there's like sub-quests, there's items to collect around, enemies to shoot, and you can drive around and, discover things. Marathon's game world, it feels like one of Bungie's zones in Destiny, but if you like reduce the enemy density by like 90% and replaced most of the items
That's
found with
not
weird
good.
components or stuff like that, I guess.
That's weird that they would just crank everything down. Like I feel like they're trying to, in contrast, in a way, or add some contrast in a way where they're like, we don't want a lot of people to be just doing strictly PvE. We want to force PvP. But it almost seems like they're forcing it artificially by lowering the amount of bad guys.
That again have massive paragraphs on them too. The entire time I played Marathon, I just thought to myself, if Bungie really wanted this to be something, Marathon's entire design should have just been a dedicated game mode in a potential Destiny 3 or Destiny 2 instead. I mean, you already have PvP maps and zones made in Destiny 2. You have plenty of levels designed from previous expansions and whatnot. You could have easily added the same extraction shooter elements to Destiny and saved yourselves millions of dollars in development and dev time as well.
Yeah, but they're probably thinking nobody'd buy an expansion for $40 for Destiny 2, so they're going to make a new game out of it.
It would make sense to enter, let's say, a hostile Venus or Mars map in Destiny, right? To find items needed to create the new exotic weapon that season has. Or just find items needed for weapon crafting or mods for your armor, whatever, something else, right? Like, here's an idea. You could have even taken, like, the Traveler, which in the final shape, if you don't know, you actually travel inside of the Traveler. And then you discovered in that expansion that the Traveler's, like, insides can create pretty much any physical realm of space based on the memories of those inside it. So, that's a really good way to do this, but you could have easily taken the Traveler and said the Traveler is making these bizarro map variations, if you will. Where this version inside of it that's Mars Mars is now hostile to you, as in PvPvE, or Venus, or Earth, or the Taken King ship, like whatever it is, right? It could work. And then you could just explain this all away as these are real worlds inside of the Traveler.
I don't
and
know.
its
I don't know
might
that
is
much about
making it to
Destiny.
guide you and test you and make you stronger by pitting you against the will of other guardians for the threats to come, right? You would already have the enemy types available to you from various factions as well. Cabal, Vex, Fallen, whatever. You could have easily made the mode even a roguelike if you wanted, where you're stripped of all your armor and guns and forced to survive through randomly generated levels.
Wasn't
inside
expecting the Destiny
Traveler
lore
and
dump.
testing
Me neither.
rewards. But instead, Bungie kind of just went, nah, we're good. We know Destiny is our crown jewel, and it's dying, by the way, and it needs content. But
I mean,
we're
it's
just gonna
been
go
dying
make
for a while.
Roblox in space with
A lot of
neon
people are
colors
stepping
instead.
away from
And
that
all you
game. I
shoot
know
pretty
that.
much are lumbering robot enemies that kind of just look like cyborg versions of Cabal from Destiny, I guess. Anyways, I don't know, man. It just kind of all makes you wonder, what was the point of anything unique
The point of it was money.
here to do that you couldn't already do in Destiny? The rewards are basically normal things you've seen 100 times. Look, you got a gun that's green tiered instead of gray. Isn't that cool? You mean
Woo!
like Destiny?
We went up in
kind
whole
of, that
color.
game you guys already have an install base with, which people want more content with, but you're not making it fast enough or good enough with? But no, here you just have it's like a small selection of new weapons, which made no sense to me because you could have taken the 100 of gun models you guys already had in Destiny and filled it with those.
Yeah,
and
the
made
gun
them,
models
like,
in this
same
game are
or
a little
better. Like,
weird.
they could have made the extraction mode some sort of ritual of even like the Iron Lords in Destiny as well, where maybe the Iron Lords are allowing Guardians to re-enter the wilds of their domain and you fight for the precious materials left behind from the pre-collapse era. Or here's another great idea that they could have done. They could have made it so that the Vanguard found the planet
mean,
that like the Witness was from, but
like,
since they could have done, they could have made it so that
I don't know what type of art style this is. It's just, what am I looking at here? I can't expect the regular person to look at this and go, yeah, I'd totally want to play that. I just think their art style choice was a huge misstep. They should have just made something in the style, I would say, of Old Marathon. And I'm fairly certain Old Marathon didn't look like this disaster piece right here. It looks like I'm looking at an abstract painting from a modern artist. I don't like that art style. I don't think anybody really does.
the Vanguard found the planet that like the Witness was from. But since the Witness was dead, obviously, because you kill him in the final shape and its people along with it, their civilization is now laid barren and vacant for excavating. Like there's nobody on that planet anymore. But then that would be cool, right? Like what would a civilization like the Witness's people have created and left behind on their planet when they came to fight the Traveler? They're aliens, obviously, sure. They were abandoned by the Traveler. They almost annihilated the entire universe. So what was left in their society when they when they came to you guys? Like that would have been a great idea to make that into a multi.
Sure, but they can't sell it for $40
in there with new threats that attack and hunt you down, and other players could hunt each other for the relics of that lost alien civilization and fight for the various factions in Destiny's universe. But no, instead you're just some neon-colored shell.
And they're definitely not going to be getting new players out of it.
Ammo and pieces of metal that
like I think that's another thing that like might be being lost is I don't think that they're going to be getting many new players in Destiny because the new player experience in Destiny 2, as I hear, is like absolutely atrocious. Like it's been a major complaint of the Destiny 2 community that they can't really grow their community because a lot of people don't really want to play the game because they don't want to get into it. And you know, for better or worse, it's early 00s or aughts or whatever, however you want to say that, future punk. I don't even think that's the case. It looks more abstract than that. I don't know. It might be. I think it's got a lot more abstract art, like inspirations than future punk, because like I would think that like future punk would be like Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, or well, I guess that would be Blade Runner for people. It would be Blade Runner. Or Cyberpunk 2027. Like I feel like that would be kind of more the future punky vibe rather than whatever abstract this is.
Remind me again why this game exists in the first
But yeah,
place,
they're
'cause
not going to be able to
everything
grow their
Marathon
community, and it's
does
just
is
like
worse than what
they need to
already
start a new
exists in
community.
Destiny. Like the abilities of these shells, they just feel like off-brand Guardian abilities, pulling up a shield to run at enemies. Like that's a Titan if I ever saw one. The Vandal, for example, which is a class all about movement and shooting fast projectiles, like come on, that's just a hunter. Triage is a shell that allows you to heal your allies and use EMPs to break down enemy shields. So
Okay.
a Warlock is basically what that is as well. You see what I mean? It's like they took what they already had in Destiny and just went, what if we just did Destiny but worse? I won't lie, when I'm actually
That's
shooting
so I think they're trying to draw a new community, and I think they're failing at it because, at least I would think that they're failing at it because it doesn't look like something that somebody who's a regular gamer would want to play.
PvE enemies, I'm at least having some kind of fun because, the shooting feels good, but it's just too little. 80% of the match, I'm just running around. Even when you call for evac
A lot of
to
dead
leave
air.
the level, there's no indicator that I can tell anyways that actually tells you how far along the evac is from completion. You kind of just
that's not good.
stand there and then suddenly the game goes, okay, it's ready. Why not make the circle around you load from bottom to top and
Have a
count
nice
it so
stream
you know
going to
how
bed
far it is
now.
before it's
Have a
ready? Like, you
great
literally
night.
already did that in Destiny when you
I'm glad you
captured
came
zones.
up.
Like,
Glad
what
you
are we
showed
doing?
around.
But no, just stand
Showed
there
up,
awkwardly.
came around.
Hopefully nobody shoots
I
you
messed
right
that up
away. It just
horribly in
feels
my brain.
bizarre. Like,
Have
I
a good
like the
night.
aesthetic of some of the characters. I like how the shells bleed blue blood when they crawl away harmed. It's a nice looking thing. I like the environment's colors at times maybe, but overall I'm just kind of left wondering what was the point of any of this. Like, I get it, right? It's because Sony wants their live service slot, but for the love of God, it's just not working, man. I hate to be negative here, but I actually think this might be the end of
I wonder how
Bungie.
much
This ends up
Sony was the one that,
Okay,
like,
so in case you don't
encouraged
know, by the way,
this.
Marathon did hit a peak of around 145,000 players during the release of this public beta. But as seen here, the game, as this video anyways, has now dropped to about 60,000 concurrent players already, which, I mean, I'll just say it. This makes me think it's pulling a high guard already.
So let's see what we're at here. Obviously, it's finished, right? I pre-prepared this for stream. Imagine. Oops. Let's do max. So the overall tone of this graph, mind you, it opened up on Friday, early in the morning, right? So let's see. In UTC, so it was available on Thursday, as far as I'm aware. No, I think it was just available on Friday. So its first opening immediately had a 143,000 player concurrent peak. On Saturday, which you would expect your peak probably to be highest because everybody's off work and they're doing their own vacation stuff or weekend stuff, it cut in half to 84,000 players. And by Monday, it dropped down to 55,000 players. So like Sunday was 69,000 players. I don't know. That doesn't seem like people are wanting to continue to play the game. It seems like obviously 143,000 is nice to have, but of those 143,000, how many of them returned to play it for another day? And how many of the ones that returned are going to pay $40 for this game? I think that they're looking at probably maybe 20,000 players.
Literally just saw this with high guard.
You can't float it. You can't float
Don't get me wrong, all right?
Bungie on
I do
20,000
think that
players.
Marathon will do better than high guard, which I know isn't saying much, but still, at the very least,
It
Bungie
will.
does have a
Marathon will do
dedicated
much better
fan
than
base
high
that will
guard.
still give them a shot. But all I'm seeing,
But
online,
relatively,
people saying that
they will
Marathon is
perform
bad,
about the
they
same.
refunded their pre-orders and more, as one user said here,
Oh.
as you can see. Uninstalled Marathon after 3 games. This is what they put their energy into. I've played Destiny for 12 years weekly. To suspend that for this is insane. And I mean, I kind of agree with it. I don't see
People
how
are
this is supposed to be the thing to
funding their
prioritize at all.
pre-orders. That's
Then you
not
have
good.
Hero Cinema, that's a Call of Duty YouTuber who chimed in as well, where he said this: I had zero expectations going into Marathon, and somehow I still feel let down. Game is hot garbage. Worst menus and UI I think I've
Ooh,
ever seen.
that's not good.
Gunplay is good, yeah, because nothing has recoil and is a laser beam. Looting is convoluted. Hold E for everything. See maybe 1 or 2 other squads per match. Art style is subjective, but it looks like straight Roblox. I could keep reading his thoughts if you want, but like, you get the point. It doesn't.
$40 for that experience.
like the game.
Thank you,
have
come
some other
again.
content creators that also got emailed by Bungie to be paid to actually stream Marathon, as one guy shows here. And Bungie was literally, and I'm not kidding, willing to pay this guy a whole 11.
I'm laughing so hard at the sponsorship offer where Bungie offered to pay me $11, 11 whole dollary dues to stream the Marathon Silver Slam. I would have played it for free anyway. The game looks cool to me, but the $11 just makes it look hilarious.
$11 for a dedicated stream. $11. Like, wow, what an
Wow.
opportunity. Really throwing that budget around there, Bungie. Here's another user who also turned on Marathon. Found out the game wanted to install invasive anti-cheat software. They said no, and they deleted the game. But the biggest yikes for me is just how many
that's not
people are
good.
saying that they're just canceling their pre-orders already. Even Paul
Like, I get the reason for wanting to have a kernel level anti-cheat. It makes sense. I also understand why people don't want to give a program kernel level access to their PC. That also makes sense. Yeah, 11 whole dollary dues. But I don't know. I really don't know what the right answer to that is because, you're always going to have cheaters, and the fight against cheaters is always going to be consistently hard. At the same time, I don't want my system to be giving access to somebody to like literally the base of my system.
Cassie, who, if you don't know, he's like one of Bungie's biggest defenders.
It
He
worries
rides them
me
all the
for
time.
sure.
But anyway, he protects them right all the time whenever they make stupid decisions, which is very often these days, by the way. He even admits, as you can see here from Forbes, he can't even defend Marathon himself anymore either. He thinks, as you can see there, that the game hasn't clicked for
When Paul Tassi is against you, you fucked up.
him, and the game is simply not pulling him in, which is pretty much 9/11 for Bungie developers, because again, this guy has ran so much positive PR for them. Like, it's insane
Oof.
over the years, dude. It's absolutely insane how much this guy's
That's
an
not
apologist
good.
like you wouldn't believe for Bungie. So the fact that Paul is also stating in full-blown paragraphs how he thinks the time to kill is very low, the need to bring in so many consumables for each type of damage you can take is stupid, which
How many of these problems do you think they're going to fix on launch?
I literally brought up earlier in this video.
I'm gonna
by the
say
way.
probably
It is
none.
dumb. I do agree. You guys don't understand, okay, how bad this looks for Marathon. Like, Paul Tassi not liking this game, it's like the equivalent of a Taylor Swift fan account denouncing their favorite singer and calling her music trash. Paul even admits here
Ooh,
that
that's
he
not
thinks
good.
the entire extraction shooter genre is pretty pointless, and he hates how you can just waste hours of your time losing all your progress because of one bad run, and he thinks that it's not very fun, which, well, I'm actually agreeing with Paul here.
I think a lot of people have the same feeling too. That's the reason why I don't play extraction shooters. I don't like feeling like I've built up something and then risking it all and having it go away, right? By circumstances that are somewhat not under my control. I never really liked extraction shooters in the sense that they've, come out. They don't appeal to me. And I think a lot of people share that sentiment. I think a lot of people who are fans of extraction shooters are a small marketplace. But I think a lot of people would rather not play an extraction shooter if they had the choice.
I got to admit. It's no wonder why recently, in case you didn't know this, but Arc Raiders actually removed their PvP feats from their game. And this was apparently to disincentivize people from shooting each other and then just like pushing the game instead to be more of like a PvE game, I guess. Probably because
More people
Arc
enjoy
Raiders
that.
realizing that the vast majority of their player base, which is
I think that is the thing. I think more people enjoy the PvE experience because they don't like. We got to put it in the perspective of like the 40-year-old dads who have been playing video games their entire life, but they only have enough time to play one game on the weekend before they have to do, participate in either their 6 jobs, 4 wives, and 9 children. They get 1 hour to play it. And if that 1 hour is inclusive of somebody who's been playing the game for hundreds of hours at this point, knows all the spawn points, and will just immediately dunk on you, they're not going to play the game. They don't want to have that experience. They want to go in, play with their friends for a little bit, get some, loot and build something up and continually do that. They don't want to go in there and just immediately get destroyed. That's not the audience of the gaming, I would say, the broader gaming public at this point in time. Switching it to PvE, to me, tells me they have internal metrics that are telling them that is what people want. That's probably the case for a lot of video games.
casuals, obviously, don't really like the idea of losing.
And that is not to say that competitive video games are ever going to go away. They're not. There's plenty of people who enjoy competitive video games. It's just that if you're trying to rope in the biggest audience, you're not going to make a competitive game.
everything they have to just die and then have nothing to show for it. And Marathon's just kind of doing more of the same too. Like I got
Yep.
a green SMG from a quest that I did, and then a game or two later I died.
You just
some
lost
more
it.
And I lost that green SMG. Remind me again why I'm even playing this game in the first place then. If you ask me, extraction shooters can let your weapons drop so people can still take them, but you shouldn't lose the weapons that you love either. Maybe that goes against the concept, but it doesn't make these sorts of games feel any better either way to me. As this user also pointed out, the defense being ran from Marathon is very similar to Highguard. And anyone who praises Marathon can't tell you why they are doing it. They are just
Remember, it's our fault for hating the game. We caused it to die.
doing it because they think they have to defend it for some reason. Look, I just think we need to let these sorts of games die for the most part. Sure, it can work,
Yeah.
I guess, to a degree, but the amount of failure in this space, live service, I mean, it needs to be stamped out entirely. If Marathon was a PvE game where you ran around with friends shooting PvE enemies, collecting things, doing quests, the game would likely be far more warmly
100% better. If that's what it was, if it was a drop in with your buds, it's a map. Maybe you lose something if you fail, but not too horribly punishing. And it's just a strict PvE experience. 100%. And I can prove that. Helldivers 2.
received like Helldivers was. But the
Boom.
reality is that the inclusion
There it
of
is.
baked-in PvP is going to make anyone who isn't a streamer or hardcore PvPer themselves leave the game eventually or just not try it out at all because
Yep.
it's just not fun for most people. It's a big reason why I haven't played Arc Raiders in a minute. I just frankly have no interest in PvP anymore. Call me an unk or I'm washed. I don't care. The truth is I want to have fun when I play my games. I don't really care about sweating against people. If you want that sort of thing, just make the PvP side of the equation into its own dedicated mode. So people that want that sort of thing can sign in and do that if they want. But the thing with Marathon is they can't have too many PvE enemies on screen because it would be imbalance of the presence of other potential enemy teams shooting you. It would feel overwhelming. It goes against the entire design philosophy. I get that.
It's interesting because they're solving a problem that they're causing, right? Like, they are. I always like to think that developers are their own biggest enemies because they always say, oh, we want to put this, we want to put that, we want to put this thing in the game, right? But they never stop to ask, should we? Because they think it's a cool idea. Sure, it might be a cool idea, but you need to be able to have the clarity of thought to think, is this amplifying the experience? And I don't think enough of them ask themselves that question.
Which is why right now you don't have many enemies at all to shoot at.
Or
and I know Bungie is
better yet,
to feed
I don't even think that they ask themselves, I don't think that asking themselves that question is the right thing. I think they might ask themselves that question, but the biggest hurdle is they always and ubiquitously fall on the side of, yes, it would amplify the experience because it was their idea and they want to implement it.
back, but let's be real. The sad reality is that this game is like a week away or so from officially releasing. Any feedback to say fixing
Oh,
the
it's coming
UI
out a
loop
week?
or
Oh, no.
gameplay loop will likely take months to fix. This is Bungie we're talking about. They didn't add anything to Crucible for years, dude. They take forever to do anything. And with the game officially launching soon, this means they're coming out of the gate
Oh,
missing their
man,
shot
like-
almost immediately. Like, look, I don't hate Marathon. I don't want the game to fail or anything like that. I more so just kind of feel neutral to it all. It's mostly that once I left the game, I felt the same way I did with Highguard when I played it.
I think a lot of people don't want it to fail, but a lot of people are hoping that it doesn't succeed.
I just don't care about these sorts of games. I don't want to play them because the design structure of what they entail is not what I look for in video games. And it's becoming clear that a lot of people too are thinking the exact same thing. I still do think that
Yeah.
like, Marathon could be a hit on release maybe, but with the dwindling player numbers already on a free public beta no less, it's giving that Highguard feel all over again. Because remember, Marathon is not free to play. When it releases, it's $40 American, 50 Canadian. You have to pay money to play this thing if you want to jump in.
Nobody
And I
wants-
think with
nobody's
the
gonna wanna
perception
pay
of how fast they
$40 for
lost
this.
public players on their free option, by the way, it tells me that Marathon is likely unfortunately cooked unless Bungie can fix it fast. Maybe the release will go fine. I don't know. I'm not here salivating at my lips hoping for its failure either
I don't know.
way.
I don't think
All
they're going to be able
know
to
is
fix a
what I
lot of the
played was
problems in a
mediocre.
week.
Everything felt at odds with everything else, and the game's UI and menus are an absolute nightmare to go through. Bungie has honestly learned nothing from what I can tell after playing their latest game, and the sinking feeling I get from all of this is that you just have to sit there and just like ask.
And
like,
I can't wait
really?
for it to
You
be
guys
my,
wanted to
you know,
make this
our
over
fault
Destiny 3. All
when
that
it
expertise,
releases.
the systems built, the assets made, the world building, you decided to make a neon shooter escape from Roblox looking game instead of delving further into the massive potential of your science fiction world with Destiny that people want more of. Marathon could have just been a game mode in Destiny, and I think people would have been fine with that. It could have been a pillar of Destiny's like design philosophy going forward. Instead, it's just a game that you need to buy to just run around in while nothing happens until something does, I guess, and then it's either over or you keep playing while you look for metal pieces
Star Wars must be absolutely canned at the moment if they are collaborating with literally anything they can get their hands on.
and ammo. We need to stop
As a
pushing for
side
games
note-
like this, man. I'm begging the industry to stop thinking that these sorts of games are going to work. We need more Resident Evils, not whatever the hell this is. And again, a shout out to the sponsor of this video, Snacksy. Remember to check the pinned comment or description so you can start earning while you're playing and get up to $10 off. And thanks to Snacksy again. While Marathon might find an audience, I wonder how long until people walk away for good. Does it have a chance? Did you play the beta? What did you think? Let me know.
I don't know.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you want to.
I'm sure they probably will have an audience. The problem is I don't think it's as big as they expect it to be.
Next one, but for me, man, what a waste of resources, time, and potential. They actually did this over Destiny 3, man. This is bleak.
Yeah. It's looking pretty bad. It's looking pretty bad. I don't know. I don't know how it's going to go, honestly. I think that they're, like I said, they're probably going to have a low amount of people actually purchase the game. And I think a lot of people are going to clown on it. I think a lot of people want to clown on it, mostly because they want their space back. They want people in the games industry making games who actually like games. And they don't want to feel like, every game is a sermon. I definitely think it's probably going to be bad. All right, let's see. I think, given the context, let's watch this Rev video. Because we like Rev.
Hey, what's up, guys?
We love Rev. Rev's cool. And it's talking about Marathon again, not to beleaguer the whole Marathon not good type of thing, but this is the other side of it where we can actually see people interacting directly with it. So let's see how people have received Marathon.
Hey, what's up, guys? Riff here. So
Hello.
today we're going to be talking about the early fate of Marathon, the extraction shooter that was going to revamp the entire medium, the game that was going to...
That is true. They did make the claim that this was going to be something that is going to be particularly good for shooters or something like that, as far as I am aware. They were saying that it's going to be like the future of it or something. I think that's what I heard.
Own the chuds. And despite all of the copium that has existed about this game for the last 2 years from shills and games journalists, well, it turns out this is in fact a complete disaster. In fact,
Okay.
with the release of the free demo of this game over the past 2 days, it has not only flopped, it served as an opportunity for those who have pre-purchased this game to get a
I hope that he defines what a flop is in this context, or at least his definition of flop, because I don't know if I would have considered what happened a flop, only because they still had on day 2 86,000 and then 69,000 players, right? That's still a considerable amount of players. I do, however, think that it is indicative of the direction in which this is going to be received, because of the amount of players that didn't return and don't want to play it, and obviously asking $40 for it going to be hard
because it's just that boring. Now, there always are going to be games journalists trying to hype up messes like this game. You can see this article saying,
Sure.
Sorry haters, but Marathon is looking real good right now. But you'll
All right, what article is this from? Do I have no, we don't have an outlet.
be shocked that this is pretty much the only positive coverage I've seen.
Oh, that's
even
not good.
From games journalists. That tells you how bad this free demo is currently performing. Now you can see right here the absolute drop-off, the cataclysmic drop-off between day 1 and day 2 of this free.
Is that really day 2? Again, the peak on day 2 was 86,000. At least as far as I looked. That might be at the end of day 2. If that's at the end of day 2 or sometime towards the end, then yeah, that would be pretty bad.
Demo. Day one peaking out at about 143,000 in-game players.
That was
And
the
today
literal
on Day
peak.
two, sitting around 60,000. They have lost the majority of their audience overnight. And again, this is a free-to-play demo, so people are just simply tuning out. They checked this game out for a little bit and said, wow, I've seen enough.
Yeah, and said, "Oh,
and
this is
I'm
a
outta here."
disaster."
Now, this really follows a pattern of Concordian levels of failure. This was predicted by many. You can see this
Yep.
meme once again getting a new edition.
And the reason, like I said, people are comparing it to Concord is because it is reached over a boiling point in which people feel like they are not being listened to.
Concord eviscerated. Highguard eviscerated. And we're going to talk about Highguard later in this video because the fate of that franchise has actually gotten even more pathetic. But now we see death knocking at the door of Marathon because things are not looking good right now.
If only you knew how
Of
bad things
course,
really
the
were.
writing's been on the wall for pretty much the entirety of this
Yeah.
game.
A thing that we're forgetting to mention is a lot of people, when they got their hands on the gameplay reveal trailer or like even any of the trailers, you can obviously see here that it's at like a 50-50 like to dislike ratio, allegedly. That is a lot of people disliking the video. Like, sure, you can take as anecdotal evidence like to dislike ratios, for sure. But it usually gives you a pretty good opinion about how something's going to be received.
Sort of exposure it's had. In fact, back about a year ago when the gameplay reveal trailer was released, it was getting dislike bombs. People were not impressed. It had more dislikes than likes on this YouTube upload on the official Marathon channel. This is not reinventing the wheel. This was basically just a Fortnite ripoff that looks like it was lost in a time capsule from 2020 or something like
I don't know. Like I said, I don't even know if it looks like a Fortnite ripoff. I think it honestly looks worse than Fortnite. And I'm very hypercritical of Fortnite. I don't like that game. For other reasons besides its art style, I don't like that game for a lot of reasons, but I can at least say that I think Fortnite's a better game than this.
that. And you can see right now with the in-game demo count, it's sitting around 60,000 on this second day, and things are simply not getting better. If you look at the overall chart, it's
a pretty bad
flatlined.
dip.
That's it. And it's going down. And it's free. Again, this is a free demo. So anything moving
Because
down,
that's like the same time, like this right here is the same time as about like over here. That's a really
Upward
bad,
that
that's a
fast
bad graph.
is very alarming, okay? And in fact, earlier today, if you were looking on the Steam
That's pretty
TV
bad that it's not
site
even on
and
like
looking
most
for the
played.
top in-game player counts and seeing what games show up, you wouldn't even have seen Marathon. Marathon wasn't even in the top 10. It was getting mogged by games like Stardew Valley and Bongo Cat, okay?
Okay, but like Stardew Valley's pretty good. A lot of people really like it, okay?
That's how really abhorrent this situation is, but the copium surrounding this is immense. We're going to be looking at unbelievable levels of cope and excuses for the performance of this free demo. You can see tweets like this saying, people saying the Marathon player numbers are dying are brain dead. The server slam started on a Thursday. Just wait for the weekend.
Well, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it peaked on Thursday.
And hashtag Marathon Takeover. Here's another response saying, OMG, if you have nothing of value to say, just don't speak. Marathon's server slam launched on a random Thursday. Most people are busy. Stop crying.
You know,
Well, what
it's not
about
even
games
worth
like
it.
Resident Evil Requiem. That released right at the same time as Marathon.
Yep.
Did people just quit their jobs? Was there some sort of a pattern here?
No, a
or
lot of
some sort
people
a
actually
real
kind of scheduled their
phenomenon
time
going on
around
here where
it being
basically,
released.
All the unemployed people had just enough money to go purchase this game because it's peaked out at over 300,000 in-game players. So that excuse about it releasing on a random
There's all the
Thursday
Marathon
is
players
a
right
load
there.
of BS. In fact, if you look even further, when you look at the PSN, right, the pre-sale copies there, Well, that doesn't really work either because people are saying, well,
Oh no, it's all the way down here. Let's see, showing 24. Is Fallout pre-sale? I can't believe they're still trying to push Avowed on people. The amount of people who take PTO to play games they really like. There are a lot of people. I was one of them. When BioShock 2 released way back in the day, I took time off to play that game. Unfortunately, BioShock 2 was not as good as BioShock 1. I liked it, but it definitely was not of the same quality in my opinion. But I took time off to play the game. A couple of games that I took time off to play games when I was in school and stuff. People do that.
look at Steam DB, you look at the PlayStation
Oh, man.
numbers. Well, it's sitting at 40th overall right now in terms of pre-sale.
40th?
It's behind Avowed, ladies and gentlemen.
It's behind. Oh,
Gentlemen,
no.
that is really bad.
Oh, no.
Okay? And of course, due to the nature of this being an extraction
I know plenty of
shooter,
people who
are
take
comparing
PTO
it
for
to
release days or
Arc
weeks. Yeah,
Raiders,
I do too.
Which, despite being released quite some time ago, is completely destroying Marathon in every single sense in terms
Oh,
of
man.
active players. And of course,
Wait, is this the official Arc Raiders account? Arc Raiders continue. No, well, they're verified. Honestly, that'd be some real big shit to sling if Arc Raiders doing the calling them directly out. You're fighting against Papa Sony. Oof.
this is also having a weird effect on the game itself in terms of Marathon. As pointed out here, Marathon devs have patched out the term Arc Raiders being censored in-game after clips of players revealing it.
No. No, you can't do that. No.
Yes,
Please tell me
if
that this
you
is true.
typed Arc Raiders in chat, your
Oh my
message
God.
would be censored.
Press, okay, open your text chat with enter and type Arc Raiders.
I'm dying. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? You just owned yourself.
No.
Nova, that is not a little funny. That is catastrophically funny.
No way.
Apex Legends, CSGO, Fortnite.
way.
They banned specifically Arc Raiders. Oh my god.
No way. Why would that be? Is that the rage bait? Is that rage bait?
Arc Raider, bro.
Oh my
So as I
god.
pointed out earlier, this would be patched out, but people are asking the question,
Why?
Bungie, why was this something in the first place? Why were you censoring one of your competitors' names
Because they know that they're gonna get owned by it.
in your chat in the first place? Why was that something
Jesus.
you had to patch out? That looks really suspicious. And this overall situation, especially with the player numbers, is so bad, and the drop-off is so extreme from day one to day two.
Oh my god.
Even games journalists like Paul Tassi are looking at this, and they're like, yeah, this is really bad, saying, you're going to yell at me, but this is a very bad trend line heading into tonight's.
Oh
In
man.
fact, a lot of people are simply uninstalling this game.
I really wonder how much money that these people are going to be making off of this game. I can't think that they're going to have more than 20,000 sales on the PC.
Okay, they're trying it out. This free demo is not promotion, it is demotion. People are playing it and uninstalling and getting refunds. That is literally what people are doing. This is the entire main purpose of this entire Server Slam free demo. It's a chance to understand truly how bad this game is.
Yeah, that's probably how people are taking it. Obviously, the point of a server slam is to test the server stress to make sure that your servers are good. But it's serving as an anti-ad.
According to many,
Oh no.
many people. And Paul Tassi also points out something that a lot of people agree with. He says this: I get that we got used to everything in Blender renders and cinematics, but I just don't like these models in-game at all.
I have to agree with Mr. Tassi here. I think the models look like absolute hot garbage. I hate them. They look terrible. Like, sorry, they just look bad.
Yeah, are you guys
They're definitely inspired by something, but maybe you should put that inspiration off for another project. I don't think that this was the way.
super impressed with this high quality budget of a game here, and this is the results? And people are quick to point out the only thing that sort of appealed to me in the game, and they took away all of her aura from the trailer. So this was from the trailer. Okay, like it, don't like it, whatever. I think it's certainly a lot more visually appealing.
It's a lot more visually
than
appealing.
this.
Yeah.
I mean, what is this Chungus we're looking at? What happened? She got completely and utterly
She got unpre-rendered.
torn apart. It looks infinitely worse than this. And then we go further with the sort of eyesore of a game that Marathon
Reacting
is.
to AIO.
Even PC Gamer
Exactly.
says this. An absolute eyesore. Marathon's biggest issue seems to be its poor UI design that's confusing players. I have no idea where I'm at. What am I looking at? And here are just...
Like I said, anecdotally, definitely there were a lot of people who said that the UI design of this game was pretty bad. I don't know how the UI made it past internal development. I honestly think they probably had a bunch of people saying like, hey, we want this, we want that. And it just like feature bloated to this mess of whatever it is. I think they're probably going to have to scale back a lot of features that are in the UI in order to make it readable. It's not even readable at this point.
Some of the examples of people like Ninja, for example, trying to understand what's even happening on their screen.
With 1.2?
Right.
All right, well.
Boys, I gotta be honest with you, man. This is hands down one of the most complex, like, menus I've ever seen in my entire life, bro. I have no idea where I'm at. What am I
Right.
at?
Because it's just like, if you have like any literacy in video games whatsoever, you can tell generally what's happening where, but it's all presented in this really gaudy, like blocky format. That's just like, what am I looking at here? Like you can tell all up here is like his, the main sections of the menu. You can tell down here, these are the players in the lobby. Like, you can see down here, like, it's interactive with this menu. It's just presented in such a way that's hard to approach. I think what they were trying to go for, the more that I look at this, the more they were trying to go for is probably like old DOS fonts. But I don't know. I just don't think it was. I think they needed to have a little bit more clear design philosophy for it.
Like, I mean, I'm getting it. I'm starting to get
Or
it. but,
rather,
like,
design
there's like
input
a
for
million
it.
menus.
That is a
Armory
problem, that there's a
vault,
lot of
whatever,
different
shell select.
menus.
Shell select is like who your guy is. Load out.
Like,
Shell select.
hang on, we'll
Shell
get to
select
it.
is
We'll
like
get
who
to
your
it.
guy is. Load out.
Like, this is just way too much information for somebody to even want to like try to parse through. Like, the inventory and what you've got equipped, that's fine. All of this other stuff, like these like stats, people are just not even going to engage with it. I don't think. I think the color is the use is the part I like. I am not sold on the color use. I think it's too in contrast with every other thing happening, right? I think that they went too hard on the contrasting colors and it causes dissonance when people are looking at it.
And Ninja was...
It's like I want to look away from it. It's like I don't want to look at it for too long because it'll start giving me a visual migraine.
Isn't the only person complaining about this. This seems like a
Ooh,
very
Kelsky.
big complaint, one of many about this game. You can see this post that got
We
a lot
like
of support
Kelsky.
saying Marathon got to be the first ever font slop game. There's like 20 different combinations of fonts, boldness levels, sizes, spacing, all caps versus regular caps.
Yeah.
All on one menu page. Just an absolute eyesore. They
So one thing I would say in concept is it causes disunity in the design, right? And when people are looking at that, they don't like to see disunity. They like to see like, things that are symmetrical and things that are in unity with one another. So it's also probably a psychological nightmare to be to be looking at this stuff.
Really need to pull back on the whole abstract thing for the UI. And this is something that can be fixed, but not by traditional means, as
It can be fixed, but it won't be.
pointed out by Summit here. Basically, if you want to have a more seamless way of navigating on your screen, especially with your UI and changing settings and
Right. I think that's what they were going for, Nova, it being a Matrix hacker screen, but I don't think that communicated in the design language. I think what it just communicated is you're going to have a visual migraine when you're looking at it. And I think that there's plenty of games that did the Matrix hacker screen, so to speak, better. That had more unity and made it so that people would look at it more fondly. Like, I mean, I can think of an indie game right now that kind of had the same type of font set called, oh shoot, what is the name of it? Hang on, 20-second adventure here. Do I have it installed still? I don't think I still have it installed. I have to like check my entire library. Is it this? No. It's like a top-down game that had the same thing. I'll post it in the Discord afterwards, just so we're not getting too distracted.
navigating throughout the menus. You might need to hook up a controller. Yes, that's right. You might have to hook up a controller instead of using your mouse cursor because it's not working. And as pointed out by him in this clip,
That's not good. If your mouse cursor is not working on a game that's going to be releasing on PC, think of how many people are going to look at that and say, nah, I ain't playing that.
Describing what he says, but basically,
especially a
like,
shooter. There's a lot of
stop
people who are
games
super
that look
particular
like you
about
didn't
that.
finish them on release. It's absolutely inexcusable for Bungie to put out stuff like this. But of course, more people were here to criticize. This one says, this game is awful, bro. Never seen a worse UI. The guns feel like crap. Looting takes 10 years because...
I agree. I'm just saying that one of their inspirations, early 2000s style cyberpunk, cyber future punk, which is in turn inspired them. Yeah, like I said, I think you're right that it was inspired by that. I think that there were a lot of decisions that they made, took a lot of liberties too. Same way, Cyberpunk Edge Runners is the same color inspiration, but well, yeah, because they didn't bombard you with the colors. They particularly chose the colors to highlight distinct elements of the game, but you weren't assaulted by them.
It's not obvious what anything is, and enemy players look like AI. And I've heard that a lot, that people literally cannot differentiate between enemy players and AI. It's like actually
that could be
like
a good
hard
thing.
to tell the difference.
That could be a positive in its favor, though, because if you can't tell if the enemy players are AI, that means that at least the AI is good, or the enemy players are bad. Who knows? I think they might just add them. They might just increase the spawn rate. They might just make this PvE in the future.
Difference.
If
It's
that's
very
the case.
confusing, but look at the very solid criticism provided by these defenders of Marathon. They tell the same user, hopefully you end up homeless and starving, and this person
Thanks, man. That's a great response to somebody's opinion. Same for that.
says, or lying on the freeway. So hoping this...
Like, I'm not saying that hopefully Bungie should get shut down is like a good opinion to be espousing. There's a lot of context there for that, but you know, wishing a studio to get shut down is definitely not commiserate with somebody losing their entire life.
Person's life is ruined and / or ended because they dared to criticize Bungie. Totally normal response. Now, there are some people defending this game, including the Burnt Peanut. We've talked about him a couple times on this channel. He's obviously a really huge streamer right now. He's been running defense for Marathon quite hard and basically saying, shut up if you don't like this game and give it a chance. And here's what he had to say.
Sure, let's listen to what he said.
This game is garb, hot trash. Oh my goodness. Oh, look at me. I'm hating on the new game right when it released. I'm the coolest.
Okay.
Look, I'm hating on the new game as soon as it
Sure.
releases. I'm part of the cool crowd. Dude, shut up! That happens with every game! Literally, the game you're telling me to go play Arc Raiders, you literally did it to as well! On day one!
Okay, maybe I don't watch the Burnt Bean enough. Bit of an overreaction, in my opinion.
Shut up! You
funny,
literally
though.
did the same thing to Ark, and that's what you're telling me to go play!
Guys, I'm going to hit you with a splash of cold water right now. I'm going to wake you up. This is a paid promotion. Okay, like...
Well, yeah,
I'm
he's
like
probably paid for it.
99% sure, okay? Unless he comes out and flat out says it, I won't say 100%.
It would be very unintelligent of their marketing department not to make the literal biggest third person shooter streamer at the moment not play your game. The probability that this is a paid promotion is so astronomically high. And I can understand if it is a paid promotion, I can understand his antipathy to people saying, oh, don't play this game, it's dog shit. Because that might negatively impact getting sponsorships in the future. Totally understandable, like, rationale here. However, I think it might have been a bit of an overreaction.
But it's very obvious what's going on here, okay? I think everyone...
Like, I think it's fair if he just said, like, every game that I play, you guys criticize.
So much on his stream.
I do agree with Peanut to the extent that people really do be jumping on hating the new thing, and they have for decades. Again, like I said, we've been discussing about that. We kind of have like an overall theme so far of this stream. I think it's within the context of how it's, where it's releasing. I think if this had happened a decade ago, I think a lot of people, no, I think 2 decades ago is probably the correct phrase or the correct time frame. I think if this happened 2 decades ago, because remember, 2 decades ago was 2006. A game that came out that was obviously going to be a flop that everybody didn't like and didn't want wouldn't have received nearly as much backlash because it hadn't been piling up for 2 decades. So I think a lot of people, like I said, are just like, we don't want to be told that we have to like this or told that we can't have our own opinion about it. And so it's spilling over to pretty much all other aspects of what people interact with. I do kind of agree that it would probably get really tiring if somebody's like, hey, stop playing this game. It looks like dog shit constantly on every game that you play. Really, the only way to, I guess, deal with those types of people is just ignore them. Like, oh, okay, cool opinion. Thanks. That really adds a lot. Moving on.
Streams, I get it. I understand. He's going for a bag. That's the way it is. But you know what? Chill out a little bit, man. Like, you had us laughing.
That's a crazy picture.
With the Hassan beef recently. I appreciate him getting under the skin of Hassan, but let's not be lying to ourselves.
I don't know, man. There's
opposite.
There's the opposite stance of if you don't hate the new thing, you're wrong because I don't like it. I mean, I think that's crazy.
Of a paid promotion. In fact,
like,
even idiots like myself.
I think it's crazy if you have the opinion, if you don't, like, if that's an opinion that people have. Because I think that a lot of people just want to be, they just want to jump on whatever the directionality of the group they identify with, the way that they think. People don't like to think for themselves. I mean, that's fine. You don't have to think for yourself. I get it. Like, you want to just agree with other people and move on with your life. But at the same time, like, you don't have to tell everybody you have to think the way that I think. I don't know. I definitely think that a lot of people do have that opinion, though. I think you're right. And I think it's, again, being caused by external factors.
Are getting sponsorship opportunities from Bungie, which is really a testament to their screening process, because for almost 2 years, I've been crapping all over this game in Bungie. I literally have no idea
that's funny.
How I would end up with any sort of a paid sponsorship to promote their game. It seems totally tone deaf. But speaking of tone deaf, okay?
I mean, they're just trying to cast a wide net, I would think.
People are trying their...
And plus, I bet you Twitch gets a commission on everybody who accepts that. So they're probably trying to get as many people in any niche to be able to play it so that they can collect on money as well.
Best to defend Marathon and Bungie. Here's one of the many tweets saying this. This era of gaming where people want to hate and cancel new games is the most cringe stuff I've ever seen.
Sure.
What happened to the days of just playing games you enjoy and not playing games you don't like? Growing up, went to Blockbuster, try games out, return if you didn't like, no mass hate sprees.
Again, this completely ignores the context in which this is happening. People are like this because they are being told that they are the problem for games failing when they don't play the game. People don't want to play the games that are coming out. When they tell them we don't want to play these games, we'd rather play these games, they are also being castigated. The context is forcing people to want to hate mob, or rather, I don't think want is the right thing. Forcing people to exhibit their backlash in the form of hate mobs and canceling. And to ignore that context is pretty short-sighted. Looks like I just had a disconnection there. Sorry, guys. Oh, uh-oh. Oh, we're going. Uh-oh. That's not good. Momentary, uh-oh. All right, am I back? I think I'm back. I had a momentary disconnection there. Sorry about that, guys.
Not every
They're getting to me.
FPS needs to be a COD killer. Not every new hero shooter needs to be a rival/Overwatch killer. More variety of games, the better. Not every game you play has to be the biggest or the most popular. I think the criticism people are providing is that this game seems somewhat unfinished. It's unpolished. It's confusing. It's ugly.
It is the encapsulation of every complaint that people have about the gaming industry.
Ironically enough, because you have to run a marathon to find other players in the game to actually engage with, because that's what's going on. And people have higher expectations. That's how it works. Okay, we're in 2026, and it seems like gaming is devolving in quality. That is concerning. People have...
It's been devolving for the last decade and a half.
High standards.
You've just been paying attention to it for a decade.
Price for games nowadays. I'm glad
you as in collective you, not you as in specific you.
Slop. You know, buy the slop, consume the slop, and shut up. No. That's not what you're supposed to be doing. Here's another one saying, Marathon is another perfect example of people asking for something new, and when it comes, they hate it. This person, I guess, is referring to themselves when they said it about Highguard.
He did it. He said the title. Imagine. Marathon is another perfect example for people asking for something new, and when it comes, they hate it. Okay. No. That is not true. People did not ask for something new with this in mind. They ask for something that isn't a checkbox of all of the things that they dislike in the gaming industry. Sure, it's a new IP, but it's not new. It's definitely something old, something that's been being done for the last decade.
And I remember covering this exact tweet when Highguard came out.
Imagine. And
I think they're making a joke. It's self-deprecation, having a sense of humor about it. But this
God, I hope it is.
Ironically, what some people say about games like Highguard and Marathon. And obviously, they did not reinvent the wheel. There's nothing new here. It is a clone of everything from the extraction.
Everything that people don't want.
And it's just not bringing anything exciting and new to the table.
Quite literally everything that people don't want.
Now, you see this tweet right here saying this Marathon situation feels eerily similar to what happened with Highguard. Suddenly, a bunch of accounts pop up aggressively defending it, hurling the same tired insults at critics, cope, hater, etc., without ever explaining why they think the game is...
By the way, just defending a game also based on no merit, except for the fact that people are hating on it, is the same energy as what they're accusing people of.
Good. The defenders are pulling the exact same excuses they use for Highguard. Man, if you didn't sink at least 40 hours into it, you didn't even really play the game. Real gamers can spot a dud straight from the trailer and are rarely wrong, let alone the 2+ hours I put into it.
Real gamers can spot a dud. I mean, I don't know if that's entirely 100% the case, because we do have outlier instances like No Man's Sky, where that one got a whole lot better. I mean, I haven't played No Man's Sky. I probably never will, because I don't like the way that it released. You know, call me a little steadfast in the way that I view things, but I probably wouldn't give it a try for that reason. But I also can live with the cognitive dissonance of saying that it probably did get a lot better, and it's probably a very good game now. But for the most part, I think this is anecdotally correct.
Now, of course, that high guard comparison is something I've been hinting at. And Marathon has come out on their official account saying Marathon's team is absolutely watching and listening and taking in all the...
How much do you believe this? Because I don't. I don't believe it. This sounds like shut up and play the game and we promise it'll probably get better. Just buy it. I really don't believe this.
feedback. We do care. That sounds familiar, ladies and gentlemen. That's basically what Highguard said. How's Highguard doing?
Well, they're going to close on the 12th.
At the current time, as of today, there is less than 20 staff remaining at Highguard Studio Wildlight Entertainment.
Again, if you had waited for a day, I think you'd have gotten the announcement that it's going to close.
The entire studio. This was the game that, by the way, was going to own the chuds just like everything else. It was going to prove all the haters wrong. Well, look at it today. This game released basically a month ago to the day.
Yep.
It has 400 in-game players. This is a free-to-play
That's not
game.
enough to have a lobby, by the way.
This is an absolute bloodbath. You know, there's Concord. Nothing's ever going to top Concord. But this has got to be like a close second.
I don't know.
The scale of this game, the investment
Now that
into
it's
this game,
closed.
the fact it's
I mean, I guess
free-to-play.
Concord was 2 weeks.
I mean, look at the drop-off. Peaking out at the beginning, nearly 100K.
Oh my gosh.
And just
This graph is a
flatlining
development
to
nightmare.
Almost nothing. To literally almost nothing.
The developer is going to wake up in a cold sweat a decade from now just having dreams of this graph.
It's insane. Now, while we're on the topic of games that are going to have Concordian levels of failure, we got stuff to look forward to, ladies and gentlemen, especially with PlayStation here. Fair Games. Don't forget about Fair Games. I am counting down the days until this is released. This is going to be
I don't know what this is.
absolute flop fiesta. This one might take the cake. This is
Oh,
going
I
to
do
be an
remember this one.
absolute
I remember seeing the trailer for this one. This one looked bad in a different way, in the sense that this looks like it's going to be preaching to me.
banger. A banger of a time covering this. In case you're not familiar, this is a game. I'll play the trailer in the background a little bit. This is a game
Yeah.
where basically you eat the rich. Yeah,
You're playing
PlayStation
like
said,
Robin
how
Hood
do
type
you do,
character.
fellow, poor people. Here's a game about eating the rich, but don't eat us.
I think they
The
actually said
rich,
"eat
we're
the
making
rich"
this game
in
and
the
publishing it.
in
Yeah,
the trailer
it's,
for it.
Extremely ridiculous. This game looks like it should have been released in 2020, and that would have been the only shot it had at success. And it's going to be an absolute omega flop. And before I close out this video, I just want to let you guys know.
I mean, we can say one thing. We don't know how bad it's going to flop, if it's going to flop, because it hasn't even come out yet. However, patterns exist and recognition exists, and directionality is something that humans are very good at sensing. I'll leave it at
I
that.
did my revamp on Patreon. It's been about a month since the revamp. Really a whole new purpose to it. Lots of new bonus content. My third Patreon exclusive video is now live as of today. I'll put a link to that, and you can check out the rest of my page with that link in the pinned comment and description. Lots of exclusive content, React, stuff like that. I plan on weekly uploads over there and other exclusive content. So make sure if you want to check that out and greatly
Hell
support
yeah.
the channel.
Well, if you like
check out those
Rev,
links,
go check out his
enjoy
Patreon.
The exclusive content that you'll only find
If you're
there.
if you're
That's
doing
something
that type of
I'm
thing.
having a really fun time with and people are enjoying. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed.
Well, thank
As
you very
always,
much, Mr.
feel free to
Rev.
share your thoughts about today's topics in the comment section down below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.
I will not share my comment or share my opinions down in the comments section, because I'm going to share it right here. You're going to hear about it. Okay. I think we got probably time for one more. I'm torn between PlayStation is giving up and the real reason GTA 6 is delayed. I kind of want to do... I think what we're going to do is I think we're going to do PlayStation is giving up. Because I think I want to talk about PlayStation more so than GTA 6. Mostly because I have never played a GTA game. I know everybody gasped in shock and horror and awe. But I want to talk about what's happening with PlayStation because that's the other side of this equation. And obviously Sony's not faring super well with a lot of the games that they're coming out. So I'm kind of curious what's going to happen to PlayStation. Hopefully it's something good. Probably not though, because all of the consoles are dying now. All right, Mr. Legendary Drops, what do we got?
These guys do not give me a break. We're at a point in the games
No, they
industry
do
where
not.
your average everyday Joe, your armchair gamer would do a better job at running these companies than their own CEOs would.
Yes. Well, no. I'm going to say that they would have a better idea of how to orient the direction in which the company should go in terms of development for sure, because they're more plugged into the gaming community. These suits are suits. They have no idea what they're doing because they're marketers at the end of the day.
I have been watching on in horror as PlayStation, a company that for all intents and purposes has all the cards to play, just keeps making the wrong move over and over again. It's almost pathological. It's like they're trying to drive me insane. They have audiences that are on their
no, it's because they just don't know how to run their product.
Hands and knees that are begging
they're
them,
just
please take my money.
They have no
Instead,
idea.
They choose to go and focus on live service games, on games that nobody's asking for.
I'm going to bet you 100% that if they released Bloodborne on the PC, they don't even have to do any re-imaging, upscaling, remaking. They can just release it as is on the PC. Everybody would buy it because it was a good game and people want it.
While burning billions of dollars. Their grandmaster plan, their solution to all of this, double down. Close studios for extra leverage. Oh, and apparently...
Yeah, they closed Blue Point. They closed the people who did the Demon Souls remake and the Shadow of the Colossus remake. Why would you do that?
Stop selling games on PC. That's an idea.
And they're going to stop selling games on the PC?
At the very least. PlayStation, like many...
Are they speed running, killing their company?
Other brands is on a
Holy shit,
rapidly
dude.
increasing decline.
Why would you
it's
do
all because
that?
They just choose to ignore their single-player audiences, the people that help them make their brand.
You know, imagine one of their best-selling games of, like, I would assume this decade, Helldivers 2, released on the PC. So obviously they got the wrong message from that. They got the message, we need to have a Helldivers 2 for a console exclusive.
Made PlayStation what it is.
Hi, I'm Sony. I hate money.
Mangle their favorite franchises into live service games, all in a desperate attempt to increase their revenue. Today, I want to talk about the decline of PlayStation. I want to talk about the closing of Blue Point, some of their future plans that I definitely don't agree with, and how out of all of the other publishers that are out there, this is one of the very few that could pull out of a tailspin, though they likely won't. Before that, today's video is sponsored by
the way they
Blue.dev.
can pull
Yes,
out of
they
the
are back again
tailspin
because they believe this
is
one of the best communities and one of the best
by
channels
not
to try to
being
reach out
them.
to people that want to code their own games and work.
They need
on
to
their
literally
own
just do what's
terms.
better
Out of
for the
any of the
gaming,
learn-to-code
like,
platforms,
public.
These guys have cracked the code and realized
That's all they
that
have to do.
Boredom isn't a
All they
personality
had to
flaw.
do.
Boot.dev is hands-on right from the
They
start.
just can't
It's
do
built
it.
like an RPG. You're earning XP, you're leveling up, you're fighting bosses, clearing quests, and you're solving real back-end development problems instead of just watching somebody else type. And
I
when
am
you
not
hit a
gonna
wall,
lie,
you
I
can talk
tried
to
this.
Boots, their Bear Wizard AI tutor that's programmed not to just dump answers on
I
you
am
and
not
move
good
on,
at
but
coding.
instead ask follow-up questions and nudge you back on track so you
I tried
actually
it.
understand what you're building.
I
They
kind
also
of
added
half
the training
understood
grounds,
it.
which is basically infinite practice. If something's not clicking for you,
But
can
if
just
you
grind
want to try
challenges until
coding,
it does,
definitely
and
try
then
it
keep
out. It's
moving.
not bad.
All of the lessons on this website are free to read and watch. I try to make sure that everybody understands this. You guys can go and demo basically the entire thing if you wanted to. You could go learn all of this on your own. All of the information is free for you. You can even demo some of their interactive parts. Paid just unlocks the full hands-on coding, the AI help, and the progress tracking. So just go check it out. If you want to give it a try, go to boot.dev and use code LegendaryDrops.
I'm pretty
to get
sure that this has
25%
some
off the first
affiliation with
entire year
Bellular too.
on an annual
I
plan.
think.
The link, the code, and the QR are all on screen, and also there's going to be a link in the description down
And we like
below.
Bellular.
Go
He's
and
pretty
check them
cool.
out.
He's pretty chill.
I don't really talk about PlayStation on this channel because I think to most people, they look fine. PlayStation is still the most dominant premium console. It's outselling
is.
the Xbox by a ridiculous margin, something like
It
3
is.
to 1 or something like that. At this point, revenue-wise, it almost doesn't even matter whether it's first party or third party because in the console space, the money is still coming to them either way. Their single-player games still usually find financial success even when there's controversy or skepticism. I mean, even for all the ranting over Ghost of Yotai. I personally wasn't a fan of the game, but it still ended up turning a profit, and it even kept pace with Ghost of Tsushima, or at least that's what they say. So I think that PlayStation...
I don't know how much longer this development studio is going to be able to pump out hits, though. I think that a lot of people, after they got their hands on Ghost of Yotai, were a bit disillusioned with it. At least I think that was what the general opinion was. But they did sell, so
just hasn't really come
they
up much in
borrowed
the
upon their
conversation
good
around
graces
failing
on their last
publishers
game.
because the brand has been so dominant for so long that I think a lot of people treat them like they're untouchable. But the more that I think about it, the more I start to wonder if the reason why people haven't really noticed PlayStation's decline is because, one, the reputation is covered for them, and two, because everybody else's failures have been so loud and so much more public.
So yeah, I think what he's going to try to get into here, which I think is probably interesting, is they've been failing, but they haven't been failing nearly as bad as everybody else. And, you know, I guess there's a certain grace to that. So at least, like, they're not, you know, dying as badly in relative succession to other products. But as soon as Xbox goes away, and I'm saying as soon as it goes away, because I'm pretty sure that it's going to, you're going to start seeing some really bad press come Sony's way.
But consistently and almost pathologically, PlayStation has been declining too. It's just been quieter, well, until recently. PlayStation CEO Herman Hull sent an email to employees listing their recent successes. Ghost of Yotai and Death Stranding on the single-player side, with Helldivers 2 and MLB The Show held up as their live service wins for engagement and revenue.
I don't know anything about MLB The Show, so you could have just removed that, and I think that that statement still would have been just as true.
Celebrating the company's successes before sliding in the dagger.
But I know sports games do a lot,
in an
money-wise.
challenging industry environment, rising development costs, slowed industry growth, changing player behavior, and broader economic headwinds are making it harder to build games sustainably.
Okay, so at the same time, we're operating in an increasingly challenging industry environment. No, you are not operating in an increasingly challenging industry environment. You are operating in an environment in which you are in contrast to the player base. Rising development costs, okay, that's fair. But also, I'm fairly certain that players aren't demanding you raise your development costs. I think that players would play a good game regardless of how it looks, as long as the game is good. Slowed industry growth because of your development costs and changing player behavior. That's untrue. Players are just not willing to eat the slop that you're putting out anymore. I wouldn't say that that's a change of behavior. I would say that that is them recognizing that they are done with your stuff. And broader economic headwinds are making it harder to build games sustainably. I could see that because tech prices have been going up.
To navigate this reality, we need to continue adapting and evolving. We have taken a closer look at our business to ensure that we're delivering today while still well-positioned for the future. As a result, we'll be closing Bluepoint Games in March.
Counterpoint. Instead of closing Bluepoint Games, why don't you start closing all of the other studios that are pumping out just dog shit games? Like, I'm sure you're going to be talking about the Horizon game coming out. How about you close that studio and let Bluepoint remaster Bloodborne? Because I guarantee you, you will do numbers on that. That will probably be the best-selling Sony property if you just let it.
That's one way to make an announcement. Don't you guys just love the way that these CEOs talk? PlayStation
and put this on PC.
Bluepoint did not become unsustainable. Sony made them unsustainable. They made themselves unsustainable. They didn't have to buy Bluepoint. They didn't need to. Sony was already outsourcing remakes to them. Bluepoint did the Demon's Souls and Shadow of Colossus remakes as outsourced work, and they did great.
I don't think you understand how heartbroken I was that this remake didn't come to the PC.
Could have just kept it at that. But of course, they couldn't. They decided they wanted to scale up. So they buy Bluepoint in 2021, and they position them as the specialist for
I never got a
remakes and
chance to play
remasters.
Demon's
The idea
Souls,
of
and
being
I've
able to
wanted to play it
offload
forever.
Your re-releases to Bluepoint so you can let your core studios focus on new IP and mainline franchises. Well, at least that was the plan until they reportedly ruined their relationship with From Software, taking Bloodborne.
Wait. What was the plan? So Bluepoint Games final report from Bloodborne remake potential to Shuttered.
Plan until they reportedly ruined their relationship.
This is the sound of me having a heart attack.
With From Software, taking Bloodborne
I died of a broken heart.
Table, leaving them with nothing but remasters and nothing else to work on. PlayStation clearly assumed that the market was ready for a flood of remasters and remakes, and while one of those remakes definitely would have done well, it just isn't. That's the first part of their problem. The market has been really lukewarm when it comes to a lot of these games, and it sure as the hell does not justify them buying an entire studio to feed it. Hell, that was proven in just a matter of, a couple of years, as PlayStation was turned into a living meme for re-releasing the same games over and over again, while also having no...
It was the games that they were re-releasing. It wasn't the fact that they were re-releasing games. It was the fact that they were re-releasing games that didn't need a remake. Like, the ones that I can remember people clowning on them for made total sense. Like, how many remasters of The Last of Us and Horizon did you do? Too fucking many. Like, just blatantly too many. But I bet you if you had, you remade Demon Souls, I don't hear anybody bitching about the Demon Souls remake. You remade Shadow of the Colossus. I don't hear anybody bitching about the Shadow of the Colossus remake. It all depends on the game that you decide to remake. And you're remaking games that people are just like, you don't need to remake that, bro.
New games to show for it. Now, beyond that, these guys didn't even commit to their own plan, because this entire deal after Bloodborne got pulled was Sony dragging Bluepoint into their live service push, which is the real reason why the studio ended up on the chopping block. This studio is yet another...
I hate live service games. I hate the fact that that is what people in the games industry think is going to be making them money. No, live service games are not going to be making you money, because in order to pull off a good live service game, you have to have a good live service environment. People don't want live service games. They just want good games.
Another victim of one of the weirdest campaigns of driving PlayStation off of a cliff.
In fact, a lot of people will go out of their way to not play a live service game because they hate them.
12 live service games by 2026 proposed just a few years ago.
That's insane. This is ridiculous.
Insane. Most of these projects were supposed to be new IP, and it's all ended in failure, being the heart of PlayStation's recent decline.
Yep.
They released Concord, which became one of the most high-profile
legendary release
media failures in history, a huge, expensive game that only...
One of the most high-profile media releases in history so far.
Sold around 25,000 copies, got shut down in its first week, and took the studio down with it, later becoming the symbol for failed games in the future. Hell, it even has its own genre now.
This is an insane picture. The Concordian timeline. Oh boy. I can't wait.
After that, everything started getting pulled off the table. Bluepoint's God of War live service game, Naughty Dog's last...
Yeah, Concord failed. Better sack everybody at Bluepoint.
Of Us Online, Insomniac Spider-Man Online, Twisted Metal,
Jesus.
plus a bunch of other unannounced games, and every one of those cancellations was just turning into more money wasted. All we're left with now is the Horizon MMO with NCSoft, Helldivers 2, Horizon Hunters Gathering, Fair Games...
The Horizon MMO is going to fail because they're not going to be able to put enough adequate development into it, I guarantee it. And the Horizon Hunters game is going to fail because nobody wanted it.
Marathon, we don't really know what's going to happen with that game. It looks like after the initial backlash, Bungie really locked in. Jury's out on whether or not that game lands or not. Horizon MMO...
This is fair. I think the jury's still out on Marathon. I think the jury's leaning in a direction, but it is very much still out.
That's not even worth talking about. Fair Games is trying to do the whole billionaires are stealing everything from us.
I can't think that this is going to do too well.
Messaging in a live service game with microtransactions, so I'm sure that one's going to work out. Hunter's Gathering doesn't look awful mechanically, but the cast looks like it was designed by HR. Yet another one of these hero-based games with no aspirational characters. Though I do appreciate their penchant for realism with old sugar legs, it is pretty accurate to have a 400-pound woman lose a leg to diabetes.
That is wild.
So really, that just leaves Helldivers 2. PlayStation sacrificed
that was a wild
$billions
sentence that I heard with my ears.
One moderately successful live service game. A moderately successful live service game that they likely were not betting on. One that they nearly assassinated through retroactively region locking its purchase.
They did. They tried their hardest to kill this game. They tried their hardest to kill Helldivers 2.
Logins to be able to...
And now Arrowhead's trying their hardest to kill it too.
Boost their subscribe.
Oh, bit of a news on that. With the community issued a challenge to the developers saying, I want you to play this game on Osho Une with this, blah, 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 $1,000 put down, money where your mouth is, all this stuff like that. Well, they haven't done it yet. However, one of their lead designers literally came out and said, yo, the cooldown on the spear is ridiculous. And the spear was part of one of the loadouts that they said, take the loadout. We're going to go ahead and say that I think maybe we might be able to bring Arrowhead back to the side of their community. We might drag them kicking and screaming, but I'm optimistic.
Fiber numbers for their shareholders, but if we're generous and we say that Marathon succeeds as well, that means that these guys are going to go 2 out of 10 at a low average, especially considering PlayStation spending habits of $200 million plus per game. That means that these guys
200 million is a ridiculous number, by the way.
have likely lost anywhere between $1 and $2 billion. And in that time that they've gone 2 and 10, they've only released 3 first-party single-player games.
Like, for context, there have been so many games that have released on Steam to, like, I think Balatro is I almost mispronounced it. I've heard it in a bunch of different ways, but I think Balatro is a perfect example of quality development over quantity of money spent. Because ostensibly, on paper, Balatro seems not as exciting as it is, and maybe not even something that people really want in like a game. However, it's succeeded on the merits of not only its gameplay, but its understanding of the roguelike genre and its understanding of card games and what it wanted to do. And I think the problem is Sony and other AAA developers are trying to they're trying to pay forward the part of the design experience that is finding out what the game is by just throwing more money at it. And it's not working for them. It's never going to work for them, because in order to design a quality experience, you have to have at least some bit of yourself in tune with what people want.
Spider-Man 2, Astrobot, and Ghost of Yotai. The publisher that is most known for high-quality cinematic single-player games released 3 of them while developing a wave of live service failures. So when Herman Hulst wants to talk about rising costs and industry headwinds, I'm sorry, no. This is self-flagellation, and they are showing signs of severe concussion. Sony bought a studio that was skilled for a very specific job, shoved them into a strategy that players have been screaming that they don't want to have anything to do with, and then they closed that studio when that strategy collapsed.
And it's your fault for it closing.
This isn't even the worst of it. The thing that I don't understand is, how do you get 12 live service games greenlit to release over 3 years? You are directly competing with yourself. You are cannibalizing your own games. Anytime a live service game comes out,
the only way that would work is if each live service had its own niche, right? So it's like, if you're going to release Helldivers 2, you're not going to want to release another third-person horde shooter, essentially. Ciao, I'm late, just got off work. Well, hello there. That's okay. Honestly, we're about to be finished. This is the last video that I'm getting into, but I'm glad you showed up. I hope work wasn't too stressful. I hope they had a great day,
it's not
man.
like a brand new audience just appears from nowhere. No, these guys are drawing.
We've
from
been
the same
complaining about
buckets.
video
Sometimes they're
games.
drawing from each other's buckets. It's a lot like oxygen in a space station. The more people that you add to it, the less oxygen there is for everybody else, including yourself.
That's true.
I understand why a lot of these guys are chasing live service. I've looked into enough of these games to realize why they want it so bad.
Well, the problem is if you hit with a live service, you hit big. You get a lot of money from it. The other unfortunate reality of live services is about 90% of them fail. Actually, that's generous. About 95% of them fail.
Badly, and it's all because microtransactions are pure profit.
Yep.
Simple as that. If I get a game that gets 20 million players and I put a skin in there that's $20 and 5 million players buy it, that's $100 million on a microtransaction that I could hit monthly, multiple times with
it literally pays for itself.
Multiple different transactions. I could be making hundreds of millions of dollars, if not even billions of dollars yearly off of this game. And it makes single-player games look pointless to make. That's the reason why these guys have almost entirely just ignored single-player games and have just been making live service games. But
well, they're even trying to make single-player games live service nowadays, which is kind of insane if you sit down and think about it. Honestly, I really hope we don't make it to the point where single-player games become live service. If we do, we know that our hobbies, AAA games in that, like AAA development studios in that case, like you might as well just not play the game. you might as well not even care. The only types of games that you'd want to play at that point are indie games because they wouldn't be trying to predate upon always monetizing you.
They're being deceived. The math doesn't math. This is all short term. I have a weird conspiracy, and there's probably going to be some people that are going to disagree with me on this. I feel like we are going to hit an apex, a climax of live service where
I mean, I think we're already there.
essentially it's just going to make it where it's just entirely unsustainable to even make any more of these games. They're all just going to have to give up on
Yeah,
it.
I think
And the
we're
reason
cause to
why
there.
is because
Like, I think it's
Marathon
pretty
directly
much
competes
here.
with Helldivers, with
Yes.
Arc Raiders, with
Yes.
Battlefield and Call of Duty, with every other live service game. That not only impacts how much money you can make because it's limiting your
Well, it's bifurcating your audience too.
audience, but that limited audience also directly impacts the player experience. So we get longer matchmaking. We also get worse matchmaking because we're constantly playing with a lot of the same players, which ultimately destroys the player experience and then drives us away from those games. So either that's going to make it where players are just going to pool into very singular titles.
You know, maybe their business strategy is make 12 live service games and depend on like 8 of them flopping. So let's think about that. If you're spending $200 million, so that would be $1.6 billion on 12 games, and then you expect 800, sorry, yeah, it would be 800 million. Would it be? Or is it 10.6 billion? Maybe I'm wrong with my math there. I think it's 16 billion. But point is you would expect 3/4 of that to just be wasted money with a quarter left. Do you think that they could revamp their costs, or sorry, regain their costs through microtransactions for the 4 games that succeeded? I think they probably could. I think this might have been a gambit. You know what? Honestly, now that we're contextualizing it in terms of business, they might have tried to take the most ludicrous gambit of making 12 games, expecting 8 of them to fail, and then expecting to recoup their losses from the games that succeed. If only they could look at how Monster Hunter World handled its content release with title updates. I don't know if that's even like what we're looking at here. Because Monster Hunter like World, you still bought everything as like a DLC, as far as I could remember, because like you could choose to not purchase all of the in-game cosmetics, and it wasn't like something that's a live service, at least in its traditional sense. I don't know, maybe Monster Hunter is a good analogy for this. I don't know if it is or isn't. Maybe it's included. It probably isn't, actually. I don't know, I think this was a whole gambit, honestly. Now that we're contextualizing it in terms of business, I think somebody at the thing said we're going to make this gambit and then was very bad at math.
Or they're just not going to engage with a lot of those games regularly. Either way, these guys are essentially strangling the golden goose because they can't help themselves.
Yes.
The worst part is, the thing that probably pisses me off the most,
They blame the golden
is
goose
that
for
they're
everything
not
else
backing
failing.
off. If anything, they're doubling down. They're being told by the rest of the industry, they're being told by executives, they're being told by analysts, they're being told by their shareholders that this is the rational thing for them to do. It's the only way for them to be able to survive. They're being told by the same people that only see the games industry in revenue and engagement.
Yeah.
And the solution that these guys have come to after all of this,
that's usually how
is
it works.
getting rid of multi-platform releases. Honestly, I think the most damning part of this entire...
Again, so I'm going to start off with a steel man of saying that taking away multi-platform releases is going to force people into your own ecosystem, therefore making them spend more money on consoles and making them essentially more willing to exist within your ecosystem. Now I'm going to pick that apart by saying there are too many other options within the game industry for people to want to spend money on a magical box in order to play their game. I think they would make more money in the long run and in the short term if they just did multi-releases.
entire mess that PlayStation has walked themselves into is that they built their entire empire on single player games and then almost abandoned that identity entirely to go and chase a trend. Now, I'm not saying that you can't
Imagine putting your single player games for everybody to play on a different platform. Imagine how much money you would be able to get from that.
make a live service.
I mean, honestly, we're already starting to get to a point where studios are no longer going to be console manufacturers because it's nearly economically inviolable to do that. Their consoles are a loss leader. Everybody knows that. It's an open secret. Well, it's not really a secret. It's an open fact within the games industry. And because they're a loss leader back in the day, they were able to recoup their game on box costs for video games. Well, now we have Steam. I think that you need to start shifting away from making consoles and start now putting more development resources into being a developer. Because people like your IPs and you own your IPs. So how about you put your IPs to use and sell them on every platform, get away from the loss leader, and just focus on making good games? I think that would work. I think there's a lot of people who also would lose a lot of their jobs, a lot of their revenue if the console industry went under. I think there's entire departments in both Microsoft and PlayStation that would be shuttered at that point. They might be hesitant to do that, but unfortunately, it's going to happen regardless of whether or not they want to do it. No, the title updates came free with Monster Hunter, and the only DLC was Iceborne. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, it functions differently than what I would think a live service, but in a way similar.
Service game. I'm saying that if I'm Nike, I don't stop making shoes to go make t-shirts, and if I'm Starbucks, I don't stop making coffee to go make tea. But that's basically what these guys have done. PlayStation.
Well, to also continue that analogy, if you're Nike and people stopped wearing shoes and started wearing sandals, you're going to start making sandals.
Is synonymous with single player games. That's the brand. That's the expectation. That's
Or
the
you should,
reputation.
at
It
least.
started with the PlayStation 1 with Gran Turismo and Twisted Metal, Crash, Spyro, Legend of Dragoon, Wild Arms. PlayStation 2 doubled down on that with Jak and Daxter, Ratchet and Clank, God of War. PlayStation 3 tried out some different stuff. They did Resistance and Killzone, great games in their own right that were overshadowed by Halo and Call of Duty, but
Yeah.
they still had hits because they had Uncharted and The Last of Us. PlayStation 2 was the return of God of War.
The worst part about it is all their like first party IPs that they have that they've just kind of let fallow for a while. People really would love to play it and probably gravitate towards it if they weren't console exclusive anymore. If they weren't, I think they'd probably be making a whole lot more fans and a whole lot more new franchise people who want to play it, but they just choose not to.
Spider-Man and Horizon, that's the through line. That audience is the audience that they cultivated over decades. Walking away from that or even sidelining it is just identity erosion.
Yep.
So with that, I've been scratching my head trying to figure out why they would think this is the move, why they would think that this is a safe investment, especially when it's such a
because they don't
departure from
understand
what they are known for. And then I came across this tweet from a former Square Enix Holdings director of business development.
Oh,
Square
boy.
Enix Holdings is basically the investor side of the company, capital, long-term vision, all that kind of stuff, completely isolated from the developers and players. And he's out here defending this exact pivot that PlayStation has made, citing industry analysts, industry financial analysts.
Nike slides
And
have into
it's
the chat.
actually kind of insane how stereotypical.
I
these
actually kind of
people
want to
are.
read this.
Sony executives.
And let's see if we can read. Sony executives pivoted to live service games because single players couldn't drive revenue. Look at Spider-Man 2 costs and performances and see the interview with @BrilliantMatthew and @Chris Ding from today. Don't get mad at Sony for doing this. The rational thing and placing bets on the more profitable potential output. If you know single player games are losers, you're better off attempting the live service route, even if 9 out of 10 don't make it. This is just rational business decision making. Okay, single player narrative games have having a tough time meeting historical expectation. Ball notes. Tears of the Kingdom drastically underperformed relative to Breath of the Wild, despite Switch being larger. God of War Ragnarok versus God of War Spider-Man versus God of War Ragnarok versus God of War and Spider-Man 2 versus Spider-Man 1. A successful hit there might sell 15 to 30 million units at the high end, and the game completion rates, the game completion trophies for Last of Us Part 2 set at 40 to 50% mark. So 50% of the people will finish a 30-hour story. If you mash that up with all the other data, we see that the older you get, the more likely you are to have disengaged over time, which is to say a man or a woman 45 plus plays games less today than they did 5 years ago. that last part's a little tricky to parse. Are you saying that a 45-year-old today plays less than a 45-year-old 5 years ago? Or are you saying that a 45-year-old today plays less than they did when they were 40? Those are two different statements, and I'd like to get a clarification on that because that would be, I would think, interesting data to have. But I also think that the reason why God of War Ragnarok, Spider-Man 2 didn't succeed so far is because, I don't know, I think I remember hearing that they just weren't as good as their previous ones. I don't know about Tears of the Kingdom. Can't really speak to that. I'm not a Nintendo person. I know a lot of people liked it. Don't know about it. But I bet you if you release it on the computer, Steam, where a lot more people are starting to congregate because they realize that Steam is such a dramatically amazing platform, you probably see a lot more success because there's more users on Steam.
And it's actually kind of insane how stereotypical these people are. Sony executives pivoted to live service because single player couldn't drive revenue. Look at Spider-Man 2 costs and performance.
We can debunk that. Look at all of the indie games that have made millions of dollars off of a simple premise. And they made the game for a fraction of what they gained from it. I said Balatro already, but look at all of the other indie games that have huge successes. Like Ball X Pit was big. I mean, even Lunacid, I played that to a degree, had a huge audience, and I'm sure they recouped at least double, maybe triple what they put into the game. Let's see what else we got. Mega Bonk, another huge viral success. And not everything's going to be a viral success, but generally speaking, they can be successes. I mean, Elden Ring Night Rain was a big success, and that one was basically an Elden Ring asset flip. I mean, I'm not going to be critical of it because I like Night Rain, but still, Baldur's Gate 3. It did something very different than the rest of the games industry, and it was a single-player experience with, of course, co-op multiplayer, but primarily a single-player experience. There could have been no other reason that Tears of the Kingdom performed worse than being single-player. Wait, there could have been no... Oh, okay, yeah, no, I see what you're trying to say there. There could have definitely been some other types of reasons, but it definitely wasn't because it was single-player. Not that it was a sequel that had issues on the Switch hardware or being the first game released at the $70 price point. Valid reasons. All valid reasons.
See the interview with Matthew Ball and Christopher Dring from today. Don't get mad at Sony for doing the rational thing and placing bets on the more profitable potential output. If you know that single-player games are losers, you're better off attempting the live service route, even if 9 out of 10 don't make it. This is just rational business decision-making. Oh my God, this guy's an idiot. On his way out, detaching from reality, he responded to a few comments.
Again, I will say that if you are purely looking at a spreadsheet, I think you can reach this conclusion. I don't think that he's playing with the context of what video games are actually like.
Down on his position, Jor Raptor saying that PlayStation single-player games are huge and that they are letting a soccer team play basketball and it's clearly not working instead of just going to live service studios.
Yeah, I could see that.
Mavic responded, "The problem is these single-player games are just not the revenue drivers they need. Most of them just subsidize their Fortnite revenue."
So, we will say one thing. Could there be any other reason beside the fact that people just didn't buy the game or they don't like single-player games for these games to have not done well? I happen to know there was some complaints about Spider-Man 2 about a lot of parts of it, which did turn people off of the game. And it also, as far as I'm aware, didn't release on Steam, which you're missing a huge market. And it was expensive.
He responded to another player listing failures and closures with, "All huge bets, all huge losses, yet single-player business basically seems to subsidize Fortnite, and they still have to pay the majority of that Fortnite revenue to Epic." Another commenter said that his view of things were oversimplistic, and he responded, "If you know that single-player games lose money, why make single-player games?" I regret to inform you guys that these are the people that are...
Yeah, why would we ever make another indie game?
Often steering the industry. These are the guys that are sitting in roles that decide what gets funded, what gets killed, and what the future looks like. And it's all being framed around potential...
Yeah, you're swapping the marketing department in for a game developer, which is hilarious.
You guys, I have joked for years about these people being Fortnite obsessed bots who do not understand how any of this stuff actually works, and I feel like I imagined this guy into existence. This is actually crazy to me. All of the comments that are pushing back
By the
on
way,
him are absolutely right.
This is a reason why I hate Fortnite. Because I don't, again, think that individually Fortnite is a bad game in of itself. I think that it has had catastrophic effects on the way that people view the games industry. Which isn't particularly Fortnite's fault, but I'm going to blame them for it.
Is trying to squeeze orange juice from an apple. PlayStation is not built for live service. They don't have the teams for it. It doesn't fit their identity, and it's not what their audiences want from them. But then you get people like this who will say that losing 9 out of 10 bets is the rational business decision because single-player games isn't the revenue driver they need.
Again, you're gambling. You are literally gambling. You don't want to do that.
The one thing a conversation like this completely ignores, and it just goes right over these guys' heads, is that we're not just talking about burning billions of dollars here. We are talking about potentially 10 to 20 million work hours, individual shifts, 40-hour weeks, stacking into something like 10,000 years of human effort, 10,000 ideas and problem solving and stress and all kinds of different things, all spent chasing something that these teams aren't even built for, instead of doing what they understand. Making single-player games. This guy wants to talk about rationality and sustainability.
They're basically saying you have to make something that's going to make money, and it's just like, well, you can't guarantee that.
Reason that single-player games
they're trying to guarantee a profit.
That's
like unnatural.
That make it that way. Guys like him that made it that way. This is all just circle-jerking executives that are trying to gaslight and dodge out on accountability. Through rapid overinvestment and constant expansion, almost every single major AAA company blew their studios and their budgets way past what made sense. They had to keep impressing their shareholders. They had to show not only could they grow their revenue, but they could also grow their studios and their ambitions. And in that
that's never a good
they
environment for creativity.
Single-player games to something that is completely out of proportion. Now, I'm going to give you guys an example. I'm going to use the same example that this guy tried to use, except for I'm going to talk about Spider-Man 1. Because Spider-Man 1 in 2018 was estimated around $100 million to develop, with another $150 million in marketing.
Which, in my opinion, is still a ridiculous number.
Spider-Man 2, only 5 years later, a game that reuses a ton of assets from the first game, the same city, a lot of the same characters, a lot of the same core tech, reportedly cost about $315 million to develop, with another $150 million in marketing.
Okay. How did that happen? I actually do really want to know how that happened. Because you would think, if we want to just take it right off the top, 100 million, we'll say we'll add the 15 on marketing on top, and then we'll add another 30 million in extra expenses that you might have had to upgrade or change from one to the other. I think that's reasonable. If you started with 100 million and ended with 145 million, that sounds about right. However, you went up 3 times the amount in 5 years. How did that happen?
That's roughly $450 million all in 5 years. PlayStation somehow managed to triple their development costs for a sequel
how did that happen?
Was built on an existing foundation. And now Spider-Man 3 is reportedly being talked about being at, around I don't know, $385 million budget.
Wow.
We are actually living in a clown world. The only reason that these companies need live service games is because they are the ones who, through brain dead management and poor budgeting, made it nearly impossible to profit.
Because they let the marketers get ahead.
Games. If you keep raising the floor,
let the marketers be the one to run the show.
Now, as further proof of how moronic the management is at a lot of these companies, we now have rumors from everybody's favorite video game insider, Jason Schreier, saying that it's not speculation. Sony doesn't plan to release the Wolverine game on PC, that PC ports haven't made much money, and that they're going to scale.
What an unforced error.
Back on multi-platform releases. I swear it's like these guys have no idea how to run their
Actually,
own
it'd be more forced,
PC
I think.
Aren't making enough money? Oh, maybe that's because you guys sit on them for an entire year before letting them touch PC. They wait until the hype is dead, the story is spoiled, and everybody's already moved on to something else. The only people that are going to be left are the people that wanted the game so badly that they are willing to wait forever anyway. And I'm sorry, but PlayStation, you're not dropping games.
If they released it concurrently day one, you'd see huge success. Because, and I bet you they would see less sales on the PlayStation because a lot of people who have PlayStation also have a Steam account and a PC. And I 100% guarantee you that it will become PC dominated.
Like
they
that
don't
anymore.
want that
If
because
you
they want to
did
sell
day and
consoles.
date on PC, like you did with Helldivers, you would see the same success with nearly every game that you guys put out.
Yep.
You already saw that. You know what it looks like, but you guys choose to ignore it.
They don't want that. They
Now,
want to
I've already
sell.
seen some
They want to
analysts
sell
try
the
jump in and
consoles.
say that single player numbers are down. Live service is the only answer, and I'm not going to deny that there's data that's showing that single player games have gradually shrinking player bases. Spider-Man 2 is the perfect example of that. It's also how that game ended up even worse than it was because it sold about half of what Spider-Man 1 did, and they spent triple the budget to make it. But this has way more to do with the quality of modern single player.
It's always
games
the bean
circling the
counters,
drain than
yeah.
it does some inherent single player bad live service good rule that these guys are trying to bake into the market. I mean, 90% of these games are just cinematic movies masquerading as video games with almost no mechanical depth or actual fun. But
I think a lot of people are also tired of those types of games where they're just glorified walking simulators and you're being exposed at through the entire 30 to 50 hour experience. Like there's a market for that for sure, but a lot of people don't want to play a Hollywood movie and don't want to be, direct, like have a directed type of feel to it. They want to play, surprisingly a game.
even then, why are these guys trying to compete with live service games at all? Why are you trying to compare a 20 to 40 hour contained experience to something that is literally designed to be a lifestyle? These are different products with different purposes. Single player games are supposed to be finished products that people buy,
Yep.
play, love, and move on.
And you're supposed to be able to play them.
Multiplayer games are built to chase time, not just sales. The second that you start judging single player games through the same lens as Fortnite or worse, budgeting and projecting those games to compete with their revenue, you've already decided it's a failure.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's crazy for me to say, but I do not think that the games industry should have ever expanded. It didn't need to. It wasn't required to. The only reason that it did is because that is the expectation for publicly traded companies.
Well, I don't even think that. I think we experienced the massive bubble during the virus of unspecified origin and the 2 weeks to literally 2 years worth of sheltering that people had to do. I think that they expanded precipitously because more people were at home playing video games and they thought that their market cap was going to grow. You can make an argument of whether or not that was short or nearsighted, but I think we're feeling the effects of that right now. At this point, it's less the bean counters and more the vampires counting sawdust. Probably. But I think a lot of it was driven, like I said, from that moment in time that really put video games at the forefront of people's lives because it was the only interaction with other people they had. And now they're paying for it because they didn't see that people were going to go back to their normal lives.
That's what you have to do. You have a fiduciary
Which is short-sighted.
responsibility to show that you are using their money, you are investing their money to grow the business and also to grow revenue. That's really all this comes down to. A single player game, no matter how big it is, shouldn't require hundreds of developers or hundreds of millions of dollars to make. If you were going to make
True.
that game, that's fine.
And it
Just
also shouldn't
don't
require you
expect
to be
make a
always
profit, and
online
if you
or
do,
to be a live
expect it to
service.
be relatively modest. I was looking at the financials of Spider-Man while I was making this video, and while that game still had the same completion time as the first game, 15 to 20 hours or something like that, they spent an additional $40 to $50 million just on cinematic cutscenes. The Last of Us really did.
I don't
ruin
think
the
people
games
want that.
industry. It's just wasteful spending. It's all money that's going to things that
Another Druckmann is going to hit the games industry. Mark my words.
have no impact on the player experience.
I've been
That's really all it
proselytizing
comes
this.
down to. If anything, it has a negative impact on how the players experience the game because in most cases they're just sitting around watching that game instead of actually playing it. You know, the old way that you guys used to make games still works. Indies prove it. Expedition 33 just proved it.
Absolutely.
The industry didn't change. You did. Also, these marketing budgets. These companies have to be filled with people that are just vying for job security. They're just walking around gaslighting the rest of these executives, being like, no, the game didn't turn a profit because of some market conditions, because of players.
I think a lot of it also is the fact that I think they feel like they have to spend more in marketing in order to reach a bigger audience when they don't realize that their audience is already paying attention.
taste because
It's
of all
kinda
these other
like
things that I'm going to make
they're
up that hopefully
borrowing
you're not going to
they're borrowing marketing principles from other aspects of retail that don't apply to the games industry.
to track later or anything like that. It's definitely not because we spent the same amount or more than the game's development budget on marketing costs.
Right.
All you need is a good trailer and a great game. The internet is just going to do the rest for you.
Imagine.
You know, I was in Hollywood.
Good example. Look at Helldivers. Literally, the internet made that game what it was because it was a good game.
Recently.
Surprising. Mind blown.
And they still have billboards up in downtown Hollywood for Borderlands 4.
Do
And
they
they've been there
really?
since before the game
No. No, don't tell me that they still have Borderlands 4 advertisements. Please, just let it die. No, we need cutscenes as long as the gameplay that time isn't cut down and the cutscenes mean something. Like, no. I am going to push back on this one. We like cutscenes, but we don't need them to be that long and they need to be in service of the gameplay. Right? I don't think that we need to be spending that much money on cutscenes. I mean, like, the games that I've been playing and a lot of games that a lot of people play, I mean, they don't really have that many cutscenes because it's more about playing the game. Like Helldivers, how many cutscenes are in Helldivers? 1. And it's the opening one. Let's see. I think like most of the games that have come out are more game heavy than cutscene heavy. I don't know. That's what I feel. I'm a little tired. Don't really have many good examples right now to like bring up. I'm sure you can find a lot though.
Released. And they're right next to the Chinese theater. I took the time to go and look it up to see how much those guys are spending since there's like 4 or 5 billboards that were down there. They're spending anywhere, or they've spent anywhere between $300,000 to $700,000. Maybe even more than that.
And they still can't sell their game.
Wow. That's all I have to say. Wow.
Yeah, right?
Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did enjoy the video, like the video, subscribe to the channel, make sure that you guys comment down below, share the video with your friends, share it on social media.
Hell
Grow my
yeah,
influence,
brother.
As I always try to tell you to do. And I will catch you guys in the next one. Stay cool, stay righteous, stay safe. Peace.
You know it. Family. Oops. Why, thank you very much, Mr. Legendary Drops. So that's exactly what you said. Sorry, I must have misread that. That's my fault. But I definitely think that he's right in the sense that there's a lot more suit shenanigans happening in the games industry and not as many people who actually know how to play games or actually play games or participate in the community doing game related things. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed tonight. It's a little bit later than I usually stream on my Tuesdays, but we were having a bit of fun. I hope everybody has a wonderful night, and I want to thank every one of you for coming out. So I will say, during the tenure of this stream, we did in fact hit 100 subscribers. So stay tuned. I will probably make an announcement later in the week for when we're going to try to do our little special for 100 subscribers, but those in the Discord already kind of know we are going to be doing a watch along of the Lost Skeleton of Kadavra. And honestly, it's been super exciting to grow this community. I never thought I'd have, as many subscribers as I do and as many people who have been wanting to participate in discussion and show up over multiple days. And I just want to say thank you to everybody. Thank you all for showing up. And really, words fail me at how exciting it is to be participating in this. But that's enough mushy stuff. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. I hope you have a great week ahead of you. I hope that you had a great weekend. And thanks for stopping by.